Chapter 307 Sikong Chongfeng Town, North Gate of Chang'an City. Heavenly Dao Alliance experts arrive. To be able to injure a Saint entry-level Luo Wang assassin with a single palm strike, the enemy who appeared in the eastern region this time must have reached the Saint King level. Since a Saint King level enemy had appeared in the eastern region, Zhao Gao naturally took it very seriously, which was why he rushed impatiently to the Imperial Palace to find Chu Fan. Chu Fan, who was resting, frowned upon seeing the hurried entrance of Zhao Gao. Based on his understanding of Zhao Gao, if it weren't for something important, Zhao Gao would absolutely not rush to see him like this. Thus, Chu Fan sat up and looked at Zhao Gao, who was now standing before him. Reporting to the Emperor, a Saint King level enemy has appeared in the eastern region, and he even injured a net of Luo entering Saint Realm assassin. After Zhao Gao arrived beside Chu Fan, he quickly relayed the matter. After speaking, a strong killing intent flashed in Zhao Gao's eyes. Since a net of Luo assassin had been injured, he, the master of the net of Luo, naturally wished to seek revenge for the net of Luo. Can the Shuanghua Empire deploy a Saint King level expert? Ouyang Qingtian shouldn't be able to mobilize a Saint King level existence, right? After hearing Zhao Gao's words, Chu Fan immediately thought of Ouyang Qingtian of the Shuanghua Empire, so he frowned and questioned Zhao Gao. However, Chu Fan was somewhat skeptical at this moment. Although the strength of the Shuanghua Empire was indeed decent, it was very difficult for a mere prince to mobilize a Saint King level expert. Moreover, the net of Luo and the embroidered uniform guard had long ago investigated and found that the cultivators mobilized by this prince of the Shuanghua Empire were only of the Saint entry level. Therefore, Chu Fan did not believe that the enemy who appeared this time was deployed by the Shuanghua Empire's prince. Reporting to the Emperor, the enemy who appeared this time is not from the Shuanghua Empire. They seem to have come from the central region. Although Zhao Gao did not know exactly who the enemy was this time, he still had some conjectures in his heart, so he answered Chu Fan once more. Since they are Saint King level enemies, then mobilize the Saint King level retainers to deal with them. After hearing Zhao Gao's words, Chu Fan didn't seem too concerned. Instead, he waved his hand at Zhao Gao and spoke. Although the enemy might have come from the central region, the current strength of the Great Xia dynasty had already reached a terrifying level. Unless the top powers of the central region were deployed en masse, Chu Fan had no need to fear them. Furthermore, Chu Fan still possessed a temporary summoning card, and the cultivation of the character summoned by this card would at least reach the quasi-emperor level, so he naturally did not need to worry about enemies coming from the central region. Just as Chu Fan was about to mobilize the Saint King level cultivators within the Imperial Palace, he suddenly felt a terrifying power in the sky heading toward Chang'an City. Following this, Chu Fan solemnly raised his head and looked toward the direction from which the terrifying aura originated. At the same time, Li Chunyang and other Saint King level experts appeared beside Chu Fan. As Saint King level experts, they naturally sensed this aura immediately. One late Saint King and one mid-stage Saint King, plus 7 Saint Realm cultivators. Sikong Chongfeng, holding a silver spear, stood before Chu Fan, his eyes filled with blazing light as he spoke. Although Sikong Chongfeng had been summoned for quite some time, he had never once taken action during this period. Therefore, Sikong Chongfeng's eyes were currently filled with blazing light. He wanted to showcase his skills in this world. I didn't expect 2 Saint King level experts to come. This is truly interesting. Chu Fan also hadn't expected 2 Saint King level experts among the enemies this time, and one of them had even reached the late Saint King, which instantly surprised Chu Fan. Emperor, let me go test this late Saint King fellow. Sikong Chongfeng, exuding a powerful spear intent, requested to fight Chu Fan. After speaking, he looked toward the direction of the aura in the sky with blazing light in his eyes. An old Huang, who was beside him, also slowly stepped forward with a silly smile on his face. Although his cultivation was only the early stage Saint King, dealing with a mid-stage Saint King cultivator was not a major problem. Alright, in that case, this time's enemies will be left to Chongfeng and old Huang. Chu Fan looked at the restless Sikong Chongfeng and old Huang and spoke slowly. At the same time, he wanted to see just how powerful this soul spear immortal of Snow Moon City truly was. After all, most figures in wuxia novels are sword immortals or blade immortals, and a spear immortal is quite rare. Moreover, most of the characters he summoned were sword immortals, sword demons, or sword gods. Regarding Sikong Chongfeng, this spear immortal, he also wanted to see Sikong Chongfeng's strength. As for old Huang, since his cultivation had risen to the Saint King realm, but he hadn't yet taken action, Chu Fan also wanted to see just how powerful old Huang, one of the top 3 sword users in the world of snow, truly was. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Sikong Changfeng immediately held his silver spear and quickly transformed into a streak of light, appearing on the wall of Chang'an City's north gate. Old Huang, however, headed toward the north gate unhurriedly. He moved slowly toward the north gate, just like an ordinary old man. Yet, Old Huang's speed was not as simple as it seemed. In the blink of an eye, Old Huang appeared on the wall of Chang'an City's north gate. At this time, Yuan Qingdu, Luo Cheng, Jiang Song, and others also appeared at the north gate. When these terrifying auras appeared, they naturally sensed them as well. Just as Sikong Changfeng appeared on the wall of the north gate, the late Saint King expert from the Heavenly Dao Palace led several Heavenly Dao Alliance cultivators to appear outside Chang'an City's north gate. Looking at the magnificent Chang'an City, these experts from the Heavenly Dao Alliance were somewhat surprised. After all, they naturally knew about the former capital of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, but they hadn't expected such earth-shattering changes to have occurred in the capital of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. However, the late Saint King expert of the Heavenly Dao Alliance slowly turned his gaze towards Sikong Changfeng. At this moment, he naturally sensed the terrifying aura emanating from Sikong Changfeng. I never expected the small eastern region to actually have a Saint King level expert, and this Saint King level expert is actually someone from this so-called Great Xia Dynasty. How interesting. The late Saint King expert of the Heavenly Dao Alliance looked at Sikong Changfeng and spoke slowly, but his voice was completely undisguised and transmitted directly toward Chang'an City. Everyone inside Chang'an City, whether cultivators or common folk, heard this voice. Following this, they all looked up toward the sky. At the same time, these cultivators saw the 9 figures above the north gate. Chapter 308 The Power of Sikong Changfeng, the Judicial Envoy of the Heavenly Alliance. The numerous cultivators inside Chang'an City were also greatly shocked upon hearing this voice, looking up at the sky above the North City Gate. Perhaps they didn't know the extent of a Saint King level cultivator before, but after the establishment of the Great Xia Dynasty, they naturally learned what kind of figures Saint King level experts truly were. After all, following the establishment of the Great Xia Dynasty, it had informed all the cultivators in the eastern region about the cultivation realms, so they naturally understood just how powerful Saint King level experts were. But now, judging by the words of this mysterious person, the Great Xia Dynasty actually possessed a Saint King level expert, which instantly excited the cultivators and common people inside Chang'an City. However, many people quickly realized that since this mysterious person could tell that the Great Xia Dynasty possessed a Saint King level expert, didn't that mean this mysterious person's cultivation had also reached the Saint King level? Furthermore, judging by the appearance of these mysterious individuals, they held no goodwill toward the Great Xia Dynasty. I didn't expect the Great Xia Dynasty to actually have a Saint King level expert. It seems we ultimately underestimated the Great Xia Dynasty. At this moment, Elder Hua, who was beside Ouyang Lingxue, spoke with a hint of disbelief in his eyes, while his gaze slowly drifted toward the mysterious figures above the North City Gate. Elder Hua, could these mysterious people be the ones who destroyed our Ouyang family before? Did Chu Fan provoke them because he was helping me investigate the past clues? After hearing Elder Hua's words, Ouyang Lingxue looked worriedly at the mysterious figures in the sky and spoke. Her face carried an apologetic look. Clearly, she had mistaken these black-robed, mysterious individuals for her enemies. After all, before she arrived, the Great Xia Dynasty had never encountered truly powerful opponents. Yet, shortly after she came to the Great Xia Dynasty, it met such terrifying existences. This was also why Ouyang Lingxue thought of these Heavenly Dao Alliance experts as her own enemies. Elder Hui shook his head upon hearing Ouyang Lingxue's words. He did not believe that those who previously destroyed the Ouyang family included Saint King level experts. However, among these mysterious individuals currently appearing above Chang'an City, there are definitely Saint King level experts. If there truly were Saint King level experts among those people, then even the Shuanghua Empire would not dare to treat them so lightly. I hope they are not them. Ouyang Lingxue also let out a sigh of relief after hearing Elder Hua's words, but her gaze was still fixed firmly on the Heavenly Dao Alliance cultivators in the sky. At this moment, Ouyang Lingxue was not the only one with this thought. Even Chu Long, who was in the Prince of Jinbei's estate, raised his head and looked worriedly at the Heavenly Dao Alliance experts in the sky. After learning Ouyang Lingxue's identity from Chu Fan some time ago, he knew that the destruction of the Ouyang family was not simple, and he also guessed the strength of the force behind the Ouyang family's demise. Although he wanted Chu Fan to withdraw in time back then, Chu Fan was already unable to pull out. Therefore, upon seeing these Heavenly Dao Alliance masters now, he assumed these masters were the enemies provoked by the Ouyang family. It seems I ultimately harmed the entire Great Xia Dynasty. Following this, a look of helplessness and desolation appeared on Chu Long's face, and he spoke, looking worriedly at the Heavenly Dao Alliance masters above the North City Gate. Prince, these people may not be the culprits behind the Ouyang family's destruction. Moreover, they appeared specifically for our great Xia dynasty, so perhaps their initial target was us. Jia Qiming shook his head after hearing Chu Long's words. He didn't believe the Ouyang family's former enemies were this powerful. Naturally, he had also learned about the Ouyang family from Chu Long. Next, we shall see how Chu Fan resolves this situation with these people. Chu Long shook his head after hearing his words, then slowly turned his gaze toward the Heavenly Dao Alliance experts in the sky. At this moment, the common people and the numerous cultivators in the city all turned their attention toward these Heavenly Dao Alliance experts. Who are you, and what is your purpose in coming to my great Xia dynasty? Xikong Changfeng suppressed the battle intent in his heart and slowly spoke, looking at the Heavenly Dao Alliance experts before him. At the same time, his voice was completely undisguised, spreading directly throughout Chang'an City. Concurrently, the formidable spear intent on his body was completely released, making the entire world feel extremely oppressive. The late Saint King expert of the Heavenly Dao Alliance replied to Xikong Changfeng's words very forcefully. This seat is one of the judicial envoys of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The Great Xia dynasty unified the entire eastern region without the Heavenly Dao Alliance's permission. This seat is here to demand an explanation from the Great Xia dynasty for the Heavenly Dao Alliance. When speaking of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, his tone was filled with confidence and reverence. Xikong Changfeng instantly understood their identities after hearing the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's words. Thus, he slowly spoke to the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. What does the Great Xia dynasty unifying the eastern region have to do with your Heavenly Dao Alliance? If you all retreat now, the Great Xia dynasty can still spare your lives. However, anyone could hear the domineering tone in Xikong Changfeng's voice. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance showed a hint of killing intent in his eyes after hearing Xikong Changfeng's words. Then he looked at Xikong Changfeng furiously and asked, "Who are you, to dare disregard my Heavenly Dao Alliance so utterly?" Xikong Changfeng, spear immortal of the Great Xia dynasty. Xikong Changfeng spoke to the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance with a look of disdain after hearing his words. After speaking, he completely released the powerful spear intent on his body. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's face immediately darkened after hearing Xikong Changfeng's words. Then, he looked at Xikong Changfeng with a deep gaze and asked, "So, the Great Xia dynasty does not intend to give the Heavenly Dao Alliance an explanation?" However, his voice spread throughout Chang'an City. Clearly, his words were not just directed at Xikong Changfeng. Just as his voice fell, before Xikong Changfeng could speak, a domineering voice carrying a dense imperial qi sounded from the imperial palace of the Great Xia dynasty. What right does the Heavenly Dao Alliance have to demand an explanation from my Great Xia dynasty? Xikong Changfeng, execute without mercy anyone who dares to offend my Great Xia dynasty. The owner of this voice was none other than Chu Fan. After just hearing the envoy's words, he understood exactly who the enemies he faced this time were, and thus, Chu Fan immediately made his decision. Chapter 309 The Great Battle begins, the Battle of the Outer Heavens. Chu Fan was naturally very clear about everything concerning the Heavenly Dao Alliance, as Shao Zi had told him everything about the Heavenly Dao Alliance last time. Moreover, the Heavenly Dao Alliance was a very powerful existence. Their purpose in coming this time was to subdue the Great Xia dynasty. If the Great Xia dynasty did not submit to them, they would definitely destroy it. And how could Chu Fan possibly submit to them? Therefore, this great battle was unavoidable. This was also why Chu Fan made up his mind so quickly. Those who invade my Great Xia dynasty shall be executed without mercy. If you retreat now, my Great Xia dynasty can spare you. Otherwise, death. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Xikong Changfeng also looked at the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance in front of him with excitement and spoke. For him, he could listen to no one's words except Chu Fan's command. Even the high and mighty Heavenly Dao Alliance did not need to be feared by him. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's face grew even more somber after hearing Xikong Changfeng and Chu Fan's words. He had not expected that in a small eastern region, someone would dare to disobey the rules of their Heavenly Dao Alliance. And looking at Xikong Changfeng in front of him, the gloom on his face became even more terrifying. At this moment, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance exuded a terrifying killing intent. Since that is the case, then the Great Xia dynasty shall be annihilated today. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance looked at Sikong Changfeng in front of him and slowly spoke. After speaking, a late Saint King Qi instantly erupted from his body. At the same time, he directly struck out a palm towards Sikong Changfeng. His palm carried terrifying power, as if he wanted to completely destroy the entire Chang'an city with this single strike. The common people and cultivators of Chang'an City looked at this scene, their eyes filled with terror as they watched the giant palm about to descend from the sky. The size of this palm was already comparable to the entire Chang'an City. Oof! Sikong Changfeng also snorted coldly as he looked at the colossal palm, then his long spear in his hand lightly thrust towards the sky. Subsequently, the sky-obscuring palm instantly dissipated in the sky, and Sikong Changfeng once again brandished the long spear in his hand. The next second, the long spear in his hand instantly transformed into a golden dragon and charged toward the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. At this moment, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance naturally also sensed the late Saint King Qi emanating from Sikong Changfeng's body. He showed a hint of surprise and disdain in his eyes. Then he instantly transformed into a silver-white streak of light and disappeared from his original spot. However, the golden dragon launched by Sikong Changfeng seemed to have located the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and turned to chase after the silver-white streak of light. Sikong Changfeng, seeing this scene, naturally did not hesitate and directly transformed into a streak of light, disappearing from the city gate. Their figures quickly vanished from their original positions. Neither of them intended to fight a great battle in Chang'an City, as fighting in Chang'an City would likely cause a tremor throughout the entire eastern region, and a Saint King level battle was extremely terrifying. Although the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was very powerful, he could not possibly destroy the entire eastern region because of his own battle. If that were truly the case, then their Heavenly Dao Alliance would probably be besieged by those top-tier forces, as this was an unwritten rule. If he truly annihilated all the cultivators in the entire eastern region, then he would definitely be labeled as a demonic cultivator. At that point, his life and death could not be guaranteed by the entire Heavenly Dao sect. As for Sikong Changfeng, he was even more unwilling to fight on land, as fighting on land would definitely affect the entire Chang'an City. Although there were also Saint King level experts protecting Chang'an City. But if they could fight in the sky, why choose to fight in Chang'an City? Thus, the two of them were now engaged in an earth-shattering battle in outer heaven. As the battle between the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and Sikong Changfeng began in outer heaven, the vice-envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance slowly stepped forward, looking at Chang'an City in front of him with killing intent. At the same time, the mid-stage Saint King Qi on his body also completely erupted. Young man, don't be so impulsive. A battle in outer heaven. When his Qi was about to press down on Chang'an City, Old Huang on the city wall of Chang'an City lightly tapped the sword scabbard in his hand, and then several flying swords flew out from his sword scabbard. At the same time, these flying swords instantly blocked the pressure from the vice-envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Then, 3 long swords flew out from his sword scabbard, instantly enveloping the vice-envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Old Huang then lightly patted the sword scabbard in his hand, and then he leaped up, transforming into a streak of light, appearing in outer heaven. As for the vice-envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, a complex expression appeared in his eyes when he felt the sword intent emanating from the 3 flying swords around him. He knew that if he wanted to continue attacking Chang'an City, he would definitely be stopped by these 3 flying swords. So he frowned and also transformed into a streak of light, appearing in outer heaven. Then he began to fight Old Huang in front of him. After the envoy and vice-envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance departed for outer heaven to battle Sikong Changfeng and the other, respectively. Outside Chang'an City, only a few deacons of the Heavenly Dao Alliance remained. The deacons of the Heavenly Dao Alliance were all Saint entry-level cultivators, and the remaining 7 Saint entry-level deacons looked at Chang'an City with some confusion. They had not expected this so-called Great Xia Dynasty to have such powerful existences. However, at this moment, they had no worries. After all, they were envoys of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, so how could they possibly lose to the 2 Saint Kings of the Great Xia Dynasty? And just as they were about to make a move, Yuan Qingdu and the others could naturally no longer hold back. Yuan Qingdu, clad in golden battle armor and wielding a phoenix-winged gold-plated halberd, charged towards one of the deacons of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The Qi of this deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had also reached the perfected saint realm. Yuan Qingdu's phoenix-winged gold-plated halberd swept across, sending the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance flying. Yuan Qingdu then, holding his phoenix-winged gold-plated halberd, followed the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and disappeared outside Chang'an City. Subsequently,
Pei Yuanqing and Luo Cheng and the others also successively drew their weapons and charged towards the several deacons of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Then their figures instantly disappeared above Chang'an City. Clearly, none of them chose to fight their great battles on the land of the eastern region. Instead, they all chose to fight in outer heaven. At the same time, the terrifying and domineering qis in the sky were still constantly colliding. Many cultivators wanted to clearly see the battle in outer heaven, but due to their weak strength, they were unable to clearly see the battle in outer heaven. Chapter 3:10 Elder Hua's Shock, Chu Fan's Plan. Of course, at this moment, some people were curious about what kind of organization the Heavenly Dao Alliance truly was, especially since the Heavenly Dao Alliance's envoy had just revealed their origins. Therefore, the cultivators in Chang'an City were all wondering exactly what kind of power the Heavenly Dao Alliance was. I didn't expect the Great Xia Dynasty to possess 2 Saint King level experts, and for their strength within the Saint King realm to be so formidable. It seems we truly underestimated the Great Xia Dynasty. At this time, Elder Hua, who was inside the Imperial Palace, also looked at the great battle in the sky with an expression of disbelief. As a Saint Realm cultivators, he could naturally see the fight clearly. But he had not expected the Great Xia Dynasty to actually possess 2 Saint King level experts. Although he already felt that the Great Xia Dynasty was not simple when he first entered it, he never imagined that the Great Xia Dynasty was this far from simple, even mobilizing 2 Saint King level experts this time. Moreover, the number of Saint entry level experts was also considerable, and the cultivation of these Saint entry level experts had already reached the perfection realm. This instantly made Elder Hua feel incredulous. The strength of the Great Xia Dynasty is likely considered a top-tier existence even across the entire northern region. After hearing Elder Hua's words, Ouyang Lingxue also nodded silently. Then, she looked toward the Imperial Palace direction with a hint of anticipation and spoke. She had not expected the former prince of Zhenbei's estate, which was not particularly strong, to grow to this extent. One must know that she could have easily crushed the former prince of Zhenbei's estate, yet now so many powerful experts had appeared. Although they did not know exactly how many Saint King level experts the Great Xia Dynasty possessed, based on the fact that the Great Xia Dynasty had 2 Saint King level experts, they knew that the Great Xia Dynasty had many Saint entry level experts. And now, Ouyang Lingxue finally understood why Chu Fan dared to interfere with the matters of her Ouyang family. If Chu Fan did not possess such powerful strength, how could he possibly intervene in their affairs? However, since the Great Xia Dynasty provoked the Heavenly Dao Alliance this time, it might be difficult for them to get through this. At this moment, a hint of worry appeared on Elder Hua's face. Of course, he was not worried about the Great Xia Dynasty. He was worried because he and the others were still in the Great Xia Dynasty. If the Heavenly Dao Alliance dispatched stronger experts, then they would definitely suffer alongside them. When Ouyang Lingxue heard Elder Hua's words, she frowned. Because the eastern region was too barren, people there did not know about the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, the northern region, which originally had Saint King level experts, naturally knew about the existence of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. At the same time, they knew that the Heavenly Dao Alliance was extremely powerful. Even the Shuanghua Empire in the northern region dared not resist the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Yet, the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region dared to oppose the Heavenly Dao Alliance, which surprised Ouyang Lingxue somewhat. However, she felt in her heart that Chu Fan was only opposing the Heavenly Dao Alliance because he was unaware of its true power. At this moment, Chu Fan, who was inside the Imperial Palace, was indeed staring at the great battle in the sky. Having already achieved a breakthrough to the late Saint Realm, he could clearly see the battle of outer heaven. Of course, Chu Fan was not overly worried about the Heavenly Dao Alliance, because it was impossible for the Heavenly Dao Alliance to dispatch all its forces to annihilate the Great Xia Dynasty. If the Heavenly Dao Alliance truly sent out most of its experts, then the Heavenly Dao Alliance in the central region will be destroyed by the Holy Land forces. After all, the Holy Land forces in the central region did not wish for the Heavenly Dao Alliance to continue existing. The existence of the Heavenly Dao Alliance restricted them, and if they had the chance to destroy it, they would definitely show no mercy. I didn't expect the Heavenly Dao Alliance to notice our Great Xia Dynasty so quickly. It seems we need to gather some intelligence about the central region next. Chu Fan slowly retracted his gaze, then spoke to Zhao Gao beside him. Although the net of Luo and the embroidered uniform guard were still continuously expanding, because the strength of the net of Luo and the embroidered uniform guard was not particularly formidable, Chu Fan had not allowed them to expand into the central region. However, judging from the current situation, the net of Luo and the embroidered uniform guard were indeed strong enough to expand into the central region. After all, the net of Luo and the embroidered uniform guard were already starting to spread toward the northern region and other areas. Esteemed sovereign, we can establish a branch of the net of Luo in the central region. Naturally, this branch will need several saint entry-level cultivators to lead it. At the same time, we can use an assassin organization to conceal this branch's identity. Upon hearing Chu Fan's words, Zhao Gao naturally understood Chu Fan's intention. So he cupped his hands toward Chu Fan and spoke. One must know that most cultivators among the Central Region forces had reached the Saint King level, and the strongest cultivators in those top-tier forces had even reached the Great Saint level. Therefore, the current strength of the net of Luo was truly insufficient to enter the Central Region. If that is the case, then dispatch 2 Saint King level experts to lead the net of Luo and be stationed in the Central Region. This way, the 2 Saint Kings might be able to suppress other forces, and news regarding the Central Region can also be transmitted back through the net of Luo. Although Zhao Gao's suggestion was good, Chu Fan felt that if it were only a few Saint entry-level cultivators, they would not be of any use in the Central Region. Furthermore, he currently had so many Saint King-level experts on his side, so dispatching 2 Saint Kings to the Central Region would not significantly affect the Great Xia dynasty. Moreover, although the Central Region had great Saint-level experts, the general true top combat power was still at the Saint King level. After all, great Saint-level experts were already considered the holy masters or decision-makers among the top forces, so they naturally would not appear unless absolutely necessary. As for the Saint King-level experts, they served as elders or experts within the top forces. Therefore, the current top combat power in the Central Region was the Saint King-level expert. For example, Chu Chen's master was also a Saint King-level expert, and he had established the title of Sword Saint throughout the Central Region. From this, it can be seen that the true combat power of the Central Region was at the Saint King level. You arranged the assassins of the net of Luo. Dispatch 10 Saint entry-level assassins and a group of true King and King Realm assassins to the Central Region. At the same time, I will send some Saint entry-level cultivators to follow the net of Luo and establish an assassin organization there. As for the Saint King level experts, let Sword Demon Dugu Bai and Sword Godly Chun Gang go, since both of their strengths are considered top-tier existences within the entire Saint King realm. After pondering for a moment, Chu Fan spoke directly to Zhao Gao beside him. Although the current strength of the Great Xia dynasty was not exceptionally powerful, the Saint entry-level cultivators he summoned did not serve a major purpose. Of course, those Saint entry-level cultivators did not include generals like Zhao Zilong. After all, generals like Zhao Zilong were unrivaled when it came to charging into battle. Chapter 3:11 The embryonic form of the underworld organization, the powerful Sikong Chongfeng. In fact, when Chu Fan summoned Dongxia and the other cultivators, he began to ponder how to integrate them into the Great Xia dynasty. Although summoning them could enhance the Great Xia dynasty's strength, they rarely took action, so Chu Fan had been contemplating how to maximize their benefits. The Heavenly Dao Alliance's move this time gave Chu Fan an idea, so he planned to establish an organization in the central domain, and, if possible, this organization could even rival the top holy lands in the central domain. This would also lay the groundwork for the Great Xia dynasty to enter the central domain in the future. The Saint King level experts within the Great Xia dynasty could sweep across the entire northern or western domains, so he naturally planned to send several Saint King level experts to the central domain. Of course, the most important reason was that Jihao Yue was about to break through to the Great Saint realm. As long as Jihao Yue could break through to the Great Saint realm, Chu Fan would no longer fear the other domains, except for the central domain, of course. This subordinate understands, but Emperor, what should we name this organization? As someone who followed the Eternal Emperor, Zhao Gao was naturally very intelligent. So after hearing Chu Fan's words, he understood Chu Fan's meaning and respectfully asked him. However, at this moment, his eyes were filled with fervent excitement. He also wanted the organization he established to become the most supreme existence in this world. Let's call it the Netherworld. As for you, you will be one of the 10 Yama Kings of the Netherworld. The Netherworld should also have 10 heavenly monarchs. Li Chungang and Dugu Bai will be 2 of the 10 heavenly monarchs, known as the Sword Demon Heavenly Monarch and the Sword God Heavenly Monarch, respectively. As for me, I am the master of the Netherworld. Saint entry-level cultivators will be the Netherworld's gold assassins. The assassin ranks of the Netherworld will be divided into 4 stages: bronze, silver, gold, and king. Chu Fan also thought of the name for this organization at this time, so he directly stated it. Of course, the main reason he named this organization the Netherworld was that the Netherworld was very famous in his previous life, and furthermore, the saying, if the King of Hell wants you to die at the 3rd watch, no one can keep you until the 5th watch, perfectly suited assassins. At the same time, Chu Fan also wanted to make the Netherworld's name famous in this world. This subordinate understands. I will organize all the assassins of the net of Luo during this period, and then some of them can be sent to the central domain. Zhao Gao's face lit up with joy after hearing Chu Fan's words. He hadn't expected that his identity as the Grand Eunuch of the Imperial Palace would be a step higher than Li Chungang and Dugu Qiubai in the Netherworld. Thinking of this, he was naturally very happy. Just as Chu Fan and Zhao Gao had finalized the Netherworld organization, the battle in the sky was becoming more and more intense. Xikong Changfeng truly lived up to his title as the Spear Immortal. The long spear in his hand seemed to have a homing device, constantly striking towards the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. And the startling dragon transformation he cultivated, due to its enhancement, could summon a massive dragon with every execution. Moreover, every move and every posture seemed to carry the momentum of heaven and earth. As Xikong Changfeng's spear descended, the giant dragon he unleashed from his long spear directly tore a huge opening in the entire outer heaven battlefield. At the same time, this giant dragon, with undiminished power, directly attacked the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. Seeing this attack, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's eyes showed a hint of terror. After such a long battle, he naturally knew very well that Xikong Changfeng's strength was not inferior to his own. Now, seeing this terrifying attack, he was naturally very frightened, but as an envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, how could he retreat? The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance quickly shifted his position. The next second, he instantly appeared several hundred meters away. However, at this moment, he still felt that power locking onto him. So he looked up towards Xikong Changfeng, and just as he thought, that giant dragon was indeed locking onto him. Thinking of this, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance could only helplessly wave the long spear in his hand. Then, a black mist gathered around him, and soon, this black mist formed a black shield in front of him. The next second, the giant dragon unleashed by Xikong Changfeng charged towards the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Then, the giant dragon violently collided with the black shield. The terrifying collision caused violent tremors all around. At the same time, two constantly colliding beams of light appeared in the bright sky. The moment the two beams of light collided, the entire sky split into two colors. The terrifying collision roared in the sky like thunder. Even the common people and cultivators of Chang and Qingde far below heard the sound of this attack. And the moment these two attacks collided, the black shield in front of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance also began to slowly crack. As the black shield slowly disintegrated, the giant dragon directly rushed towards the body of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, due to the black shield weakening the giant dragon's attack. Therefore, although the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was sent flying by the giant dragon, but at this moment, he was only injured by Xikong Changfeng's move. When the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance reappeared before Xikong Changfeng, he looked extremely disheveled, with a huge indentation on his chest. If it were an ordinary person, he would have likely already perished. At the same time, his hair was disheveled, and as gusts of wind blew, he looked even more forlorn. A trace of blood hung at the corner of his mouth. Does your great Xia dynasty truly intend to fight my Heavenly Dao Alliance to the death? At this moment, a hint of retreat arose in the heart of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, so he slowly looked up at Xikong Changfeng and spoke. At the same time, a hint of threat appeared in his eyes. Clearly, he had already brought up the Heavenly Dao Alliance, though he had already done so from the very beginning. Xikong Changfeng did not reply to the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. Instead, he directly wielded his long spear and charged toward the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. His spear carried a terrifying and domineering spear light. The next second, a silver-white spear light directly attacked the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Then, this silver-white light seemed to pierce through time and space, directly landing on the body of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, an unexpected event occurred at this moment. A fiery red light suddenly emanated from the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's body, then instantly formed a fiery red light sphere that blocked Xikong Changfeng's spear. Chapter 312 Forced Enhancement of Strength. Overwhelming battle against the Great Xia Dynasty. This terrifying power prevented the long spear in Xikong Changfeng's hand from advancing even a single step, as if an invisible force was stopping Xikong Changfeng's long spear from moving forward. Sensing this unfavorable change, Xikong Changfeng quickly withdrew the long spear in his hand, then rapidly flew back hundreds of meters, staring at the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance glared at Xikong Changfeng with a face full of fury, though at the same time, A streak of blood-red, killing intent appeared in the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's eyes. "You force my hand. Since it has come to this, then die." The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, holding a long spear in his hand, his eyes shining with blood-red light, charged furiously towards Sikong Changfeng. At the same time, the aura emanating from him reached the Saint King Consummation Realm, already surpassing Sikong Changfeng by a minor realm. Sikong Changfeng was also surprised by this sight. He had not expected this fellow in front of him to raise his cultivation to the Saint King Consummation Realm in just a few breaths of time. However, Sikong Changfeng then recalled that when his long spear had thrust forward just now, the man had tossed a medicinal pill into his mouth. Clearly, the increase in the strength of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to the Saint King Consummation Realm was due to that one medicinal pill. Nevertheless, Sikong Changfeng did not flinch. Instead, he radiated a terrifying battle intent and charged forward, long spear in hand. At this moment, the late Saint King aura around Sikong Changfeng grew increasingly powerful. Although his aura was only at the late stage Saint King, the late Saint King aura emanating from him could now rival the aura of the Saint King Consummation Realm. The next second, the weapons in their hands clashed together. Because the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had used a medicinal pill to boost his strength, his current aura was not particularly pure. Streaks of blood-red chi were mixed within the silver-white aura. This made him look extremely volatile. Furthermore, within this volatile aura, one could sense invisible forces continuously ravaging his body. This was the consequence of using that medicinal pill to increase strength. Meanwhile, Sikong Changfeng was continuously using the long spear in his hand to neutralize the attacks of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. Their great battle thus entered a stalemate. Concurrently, Old Huang was constantly brandishing the flying sword from his sword box to fend off the attacks of the mid-stage Saint King expert of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. Old Huang's flying sword rapidly shot toward the deputy envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. His flying sword were entities capable of maximizing damage. Therefore, every single flying sword carried a type of sword intent, forcing the deputy envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to continue resisting Old Huang's attacks. At this point, he couldn't even manage to get close to Old Huang. Instead, he was constantly forced to flee by Old Huang's flying sword. Of course, it was also difficult for Old Huang to finish off this deputy envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance right now, as Old Huang's strength was inherently a minor realm weaker than the deputy envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, if their great battle continued like this, the final victor would definitely be Old Huang, especially since Old Huang had not yet used a Sword 9. One must know that Sword 9 was Old Huang's true trump card. On the other side, the great battle between Yuan Qingdu and the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was even more fierce. Although the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's cultivation had also reached the perfected saint realm, he was still being overwhelmingly suppressed by Yuan Qingdu, who was also in the perfected saint realm. The phoenix-winged, gold-plated halberd in Yuan Qingdu's hand seemed like one golden phoenix after another, continuously striking the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. At the same time, the domineering aura emanating from Yuan Qingdu filled the entire sky. Yuan Qingdu, clad in golden armor, resembled a heavenly god. Every move and every strike he made carried a domineering aura. Therefore, the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance opposite him found even resisting difficult, and when blocking the phoenix-winged, gold-plated halberd in Yuan Qingdu's hand, he was directly sent flying by the force. The Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance then stared at Yuan Qingdu before him with an unbelievable look, but at this moment, he still had to face Yuan Qingdu's terrifying attacks. Thus, he could only flee while praying that their envoy would quickly defeat the two Saint Kings of the Great Xia Dynasty and come to their aid. And Yuan Qingdu was not the only one achieving an overwhelming victory. Pei Yuanqing was also continuously suppressing the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him with a pair of silver hammers in his hands. After all, Pei Yuanqing was the third most heroic figure in the Sui and Tang dynasties, and in mythology, he was the reincarnation of Neza from the Heavenly Court, so Pei Yuanqing's strength naturally wouldn't be weak. Clad in silver armor and wielding silver hammers, he resembled a minor war god, constantly charging toward the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. The long spear in the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's hand continuously blocked Pei Yuanqing's attacks, but by this point, the long spear in the Deacon's hand had begun to tremble violently, and he could no longer withstand Pei Yuanqing's assault. Pei Yuanqing, meanwhile, was having a great time, constantly swinging the silver hammers in his hands toward the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Not far from Pei Yuanqing, Luo Cheng was also continuously brandishing the long spear in his hand, attacking a deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Although Luo Cheng was only ranked 7th in the Sui and Tang world, his strength at this moment was by no means weak. The silver spear in his hand was like a white dragon, constantly striking the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. At the same time, the Five Tigers' soul-severing spear technique displayed even greater power in his hands. After all, Luo Cheng was originally the reincarnation of the White Tiger Star Lord in the historical fiction, so he was naturally achieving an overwhelming victory against the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. As for Jiang Song, who was near Luo Cheng, he was even more relaxed when facing the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, as he was an existence comparable to Li Yuanba in the Sui and Tang world. Therefore, his strength naturally surpassed that of Luo Cheng and Pei Yuanqing, among others. It could be said that he was the only expert in the historical fiction who was not a reincarnation of an immortal. Although the long spear in his hand did not look as lethal as the one wielded by Luo Cheng. Even if it appeared to be an ordinary spear thrust, the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance opposite him could not block it. From this, it was evident that Jiang Song's spear technique had reached an uncanny level, even achieving the legendary state of returning to simplicity, with every spear thrust carrying unimaginable power. Chapter 313 Sikong Changfeng takes the Heavenly Dao Alliance envoy away, the suppressed Heavenly Dao Alliance envoy. Just as Luo Cheng and the others were crushing the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, the great battle between Sikong Changfeng and the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance in the sky was also growing fiercer. Sikong Changfeng's long spear seemed like a streak of cold light, constantly thrusting toward the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Meanwhile, the black qi emanating from the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance became increasingly explosive, as if a power was continuously boosting his qi. At this moment, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's qi had already risen to the Saint King Consummation realm. One could even say it was close to surpassing the Saint King Consummation realm. However, Sikong Changfeng, facing him, did not fall into a disadvantage whatsoever. Instead, he continuously resisted the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's attacks, using flexible spear techniques and powerful force. Simultaneously, the tip of Sikong Changfeng's long spear continuously erupted with terrifying spear lights, which resembled blazing suns, relentlessly striking toward the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Yet, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance seemed to have lost his mind at this point. Seeing Sikong Changfeng's spear light, he did not choose to evade. Instead, he charged towards Sikong Changfeng using a technique of exchanging injury for injury. The spear in his hand continuously emitted bursts of cold light, mixed with terrifying murderous qi. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance now seemed to have become completely demonic. Seeing this, Sikong Changfeng could only retreat helplessly. Although he was not afraid of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance at this moment, the envoy's fighting style had left him frustrated. After all, it was not yet time for him and the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to fight to the death. As long as Sikong Changfeng stalled until the effects of the medicinal pill the envoy had consumed wore off, he could easily deal with the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Therefore, Sikong Changfeng had no need whatsoever to trade injury for injury or injury for life with the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Thus, Sikong Changfeng fought while retreating, and soon he had withdrawn several kilometers behind the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance grew even angrier upon seeing Sikong Changfeng's actions. He held his spear and charged furiously towards Sikong Changfeng. At this point, his speed was so fast that it was impossible for others to clearly see him. In just a breath's time, he appeared beside Sikong Changfeng, and the spear in his hand immediately struck towards Sikong Changfeng. But how could Sikong Changfeng allow himself to be injured so easily? Sikong Changfeng gripped his silver spear tightly, and with a slight parry, he blocked the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's attack. Sikong Changfeng then transformed into a long streak of light and vanished from the side of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. When his figure reappeared, he was already several kilometers away from the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance once again flew into a rage and charged towards Sikong Changfeng. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's eyes were bloodshot. Clearly, he had entered a state of demonic frenzy. Fortunately, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had now fallen into Sikong Changfeng's trap. Sikong Changfeng was currently leading the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance around, much like walking a dog. While continuously evading, Sikong Changfeng's qi slowly recovered, and even the spiritual energy he had just consumed was mostly replenished. As Sikong Changfeng continued to lead the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance around, the turbulent qi, surging from the envoy, began to weaken slowly. Eventually, his cultivation found it difficult even to stabilize at the Saint King consummation realm. Seeing this, Sikong Changfeng revealed a playful smile. He knew that his move had taken effect. Then, when the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's cultivation stabilized between late Saint King and perfected Saint King, Sikong Changfeng stopped evading and directly thrust his spear toward the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Immediately afterward, a full moon rose behind Sikong Changfeng. What was surprising was that this full moon carried a scorching sensation. The next second, the full moon seemed to come alive, striking toward the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance did not choose to dodge this sight. Instead, he directly swung the spear in his hand, and a blood wolf slowly rose behind him. The moment the blood wolf appeared, it stared intently at Sikong Changfeng in front of it. However, the blood wolf's target quickly shifted from Sikong Changfeng to the full moon. Wolf species tend to frenzy when they see a full moon, and this phenomenon occurred even within the move that was unleashed. The blood wolf seemed to break free from the control of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and went directly toward the full moon that Sikong Changfeng had launched. However, this was exactly what the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance wanted. The next second, the blood wolf directly collided with the full moon in front of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. A wolf. The instant the full moon collided with the blood wolf, a wolf howl echoed throughout the entire outer heaven, and subsequently, a cloud of blood mist appeared beneath the moon. This blood mist quickly turned into drops of blood rain, continuously falling from the sky. The full moon, meanwhile, continued to crash toward the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. At this moment, no matter how quick the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was, he could not withstand the full moon, and he was completely suppressed by it. This scene was like the Buddha's palm suppressing the Monkey King. Die! Die! Feeling the terrifying power suppressing him, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance showed a cruel smile. He then continuously swung the spear in his hand, thrusting toward the full moon. The spear in his hand continuously emitted bursts of blood-red light, and these blood-red lights managed to resist the descent of the full moon. Simultaneously, due to the continuous thrusting of the blood-red lights, the full moon in the sky slowly began to dissipate. The instant it scattered, one could see small specks of blood-red light holding it apart. Sikong Changfeng, watching from the opposite side, was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to be able to resolve his attack. Sikong Changfeng had originally thought that this strike would finish off the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, but he never expected the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to block it. However, Sikong Changfeng naturally felt that the qi emanating from the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was beginning to weaken slowly. In just a few breaths, the qi of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had completely returned to the late Saint King realm. Clearly, the strike the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had just unleashed had completely exhausted the spiritual energy of the medicinal pill inside his body. Chapter 314, The Mad Heavenly Dao Alliance Envoy. Sikong Changfeng forcefully slays the Heavenly Dao Alliance Envoy. When the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's cultivation returned to the late Saint King realm, the blood-red color in his eyes began to slowly recede. Soon, the blood-red color in his eyes disappeared, replaced by clarity. However, when he saw Sikong Changfeng in front of him, the clarity in his eyes turned into fury. He had not expected that even after using his trump card, he still couldn't resolve the situation with Sikong Changfeng. And at this moment, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance naturally felt the shattered meridians within his body. Although he could still mobilize the power of a late Saint King, after this battle, all the power in his body would be completely exhausted. Perhaps there was a spirit treasure that could restore his cultivation, but Sikong Changfeng in front of him would not let him escape. And besides, even if he wanted to recover, the things he needed were impossible to find. Although the force he belonged to was the Heavenly Dao Alliance, the Heavenly Dao Alliance would not search for heaven and earth treasure for a good-for-nothing. Even if there were any, it would be impossible for a good-for-nothing to use them. Thinking of this, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance stared at Sikong Changfeng with a furious expression. At this moment, he no longer cared about the shattered power within his body. He only wanted to eliminate Sikong Changfeng in front of him. Sikong Changfeng's thoughts happened to be the same as his. He looked at the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance in front of him with a playful gaze. Then, a sneer appeared on his lips. No matter what, he was a spear immortal. He naturally wouldn't have the slightest fear of a cultivator who was also in the late Saint King realm. Moreover, he understood the physical condition of this late Saint King cultivator. Today, even if it cost me my life, I will kill you. Then, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance spoke to Sikong Chongfeng with a furious expression, his voice carrying a terrifying dread that made one's hair stand on end. Then let me see how strong you truly are. After hearing his words, Sikong Chongfeng looked at him with disdain and said, then he gently placed the silver spear in his hand behind his back, appearing like a true spear immortal standing between heaven and earth. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance became even more furious when he saw the disdainful smile on Sikong Chongfeng's face. Then, the black qi on his body continuously spread throughout his entire being. As these black qi continuously spread through the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's body, his already somewhat weak qi began to surge rapidly. In just a moment, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's cultivation once again returned to the Saint King consummation realm. Sikong Chongfeng was also somewhat surprised to feel this. He hadn't expected the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to have so many trump cards. After consuming one medicinal pill, he still had the power to enhance his cultivation. However, what Sikong Chongfeng didn't know was that this was the last chance for the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to enhance his cultivation. It could even be said that after the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance launched this attack, he would no longer have any power left. And as the qi on the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's body continuously increased, a blood wolf slowly rose behind him. The moment this blood wolf appeared, the entire sky seemed to be dyed blood red. At the same time, a fierce and brutal qi slowly emanated from this blood wolf. And at this moment, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's face became even paler, but he disregarded everything and injected all his power into the blood wolf behind him. In just a few breaths, the qi on the blood wolf behind him had reached an even more terrifying level, and a more rampant, violent, and murderous qi continuously emanated from the blood wolf's body. Then, the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance directly sent the blood wolf behind him fiercely towards Sikong Chongfeng. As he launched this move, his body began to sway in the sky. Clearly, he was already on the verge of death. However, at this moment, he steadied his body, looking at Sikong Chongfeng opposite him with madness in his eyes. So you're using all the power in your body to launch this final move, huh? Well, if that's the case, I'll take it. Sikong Chongfeng naturally understood the meaning of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance opposite him when he saw this scene, so a strong battle intent appeared in his eyes. He tightly gripped the silver spear in his hands. Then he took a step forward, and at the same time, a silver-white giant dragon rapidly rose behind him. The moment this giant dragon appeared, it was as if the entire sky couldn't bear its existence. And Sikong Chongfeng leaped onto the giant dragon's head. Holding his long spear, he quickly stood on the giant dragon. Then, with eyes full of battle intent, he looked at the blood wolf in front of him. Then, he quickly merged into this giant dragon. And then, carrying terrifying power, he charged towards the blood wolf in front. The next second, the blood wolf and the giant dragon in the sky collided. The moment of impact, the entire sky was split into a blood red and a silver white. These two rays of light appeared so dazzling under the brilliant sunlight. At the same time, the terrifying rumbling sound continued to come from the sky. The common people below, feeling the terrifying commotion in the sky, continuously prayed for the people of the Great Xia dynasty to be victorious. At the same time, their faces carried a hint of worry as they looked at the sky where the blood-red and silver-white lights were mixed. And under everyone's gaze, the silver-white light pierced through the blood-red light, as if an azure dragon was continuously crossing that sea of blood. At the same time, the sunlight in the sky slowly shone out from the silver-white light, making the entire sky appear very peaceful. And at this moment in the sky, Sikong Chongfeng, holding his long spear, had pierced through the chest of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance looked at Sikong Chongfeng opposite him with an incredulous expression. He hadn't expected his final blow, which burned his last bit of power, to be broken by Sikong Chongfeng. Then his body began to slowly disintegrate, turning into drops of blood rain falling towards the ground below. And as Sikong Chongfeng watched the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance turn into drops of blood rain and fall, a trace of blood also appeared at the corner of his mouth. His entire face also turned pale. However, he still slowly left this sky, holding the long spear in his hand, and then a ray of light flashed at the north gate of Chang'an City. The next second, Sikong Chongfeng's figure stood on the city wall of the north gate of Chang'an City, his gaze distantly looking towards the battlefield of Outer Heaven. Chapter 315 The strange phenomenon of the Holy King's fall spread throughout the eastern region, shocking the entire region. At this moment, Sikong Chongfeng was not worried about the other people from Outer Heaven, as in his eyes, the other people from the Great Xia dynasty were all gaining the upper hand. And the vision of the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance that Sikong Changfeng had just killed also appeared in the sky. Whenever a Saint King level expert fell, a terrifying vision would appear in the sky. A bloody rain instantly poured down over Chang'an City, and at the same time, the entire Heavenly Dao seemed to grieve, a sorrowful aura slowly spreading throughout Chang'an City. This aura was even continuously spreading towards the entire eastern region. At this time, the cultivators of the eastern region naturally also felt this scene, but they did not know what was happening. After all, the highest cultivation of the cultivators in the eastern region was only the King realm. So how could they know that there would be a vision when a Saint King level expert fell? Of course, their ignorance did not mean that others were unaware. At this moment, the sect master of Wuji sect, upon sensing the pervasive aura in the sky, stood up in a panic. Then, his eyes filled with disbelief as he looked in the direction of Chang'an City. At this time, it was not only the sect master of Wuji sect who felt incredible. The grand elders of Wuji sect also appeared in the main hall, their eyes similarly staring in disbelief at Chang'an City. Due to the great distance, they of Wuji sect did not notice the battle that had just occurred. Of course, the most important thing was that the highest cultivation in Wuji sect was only the entering Saint realm, and that was only achieved after the establishment of the Great Xia dynasty. So at first, they did not notice the changes in Chang'an City. However, the fall of a Saint King now naturally attracted their attention. I never thought that a Saint King level expert would fall in Chang'an City to cause such a strong vision. I'm afraid this Saint King level expert was not weak. The sect master of Wuji's sect looked leisurely in the direction of Chang'an City and slowly said. At this time, he also recalled the several figures standing around the altar when the Great Xia dynasty was established. Yes, it seems this time the Great Xia dynasty has killed a powerful Saint King level expert. I never imagined the strength of the Great Xia dynasty to be so terrifying. And Grand Elder at this time naturally also recalled the several Saint King level experts of the Great Xia dynasty, and at the same time, a hint of emotion appeared on his face. If they had not surrendered to the Great Xia dynasty back then their Wuji sect would have probably been dealt with by the Great Xia dynasty long ago. Since that is the case, then let us go to Chang'an City. Although we might not be able to help the Emperor when we go to Chang'an City, our Wuji sect is, after all, a subordinate of the Emperor. At this moment, an old man slowly stepped forward and spoke to everyone present. After speaking, his gaze leisurely looked towards Chang'an City. The others, upon hearing his words, also nodded their heads in agreement. Afterwards, several experts from Wuji sect transformed into several phantoms and disappeared from Wuji sect, and the direction they were heading was Chang'an City of Great Xia. This vision naturally also attracted the attention of the entire eastern region. The cultivators of the eastern region also looked up at the bloody rain over Chang'an City. At the same time, this pervasive, sorrowful aura also made them feel somewhat at a loss. What exactly is going on? Why do I feel so sad right now? What happened in Chang'an City? I suddenly feel so sad, as if a loved one has passed away. Perhaps the Emperor is doing something right now. After all, to cause such an astonishing vision, there should be no one else besides the Emperor, right? Why don't we go to Chang'an City to see what happened there? I want to go see. All the cultivators in the eastern region were discussing this sorrowful aura at this time, but they were not worried. After all, in their hearts, Chu Fan, the Emperor, was an invincible existence. With Chu Fan, nothing would happen to their eastern region. However, at this moment, these cultivators all looked curiously in the direction of Chang'an City, and many were eager to go to Chang'an City. Just as the cultivators of the entire eastern region were shocked, on the battlefield of Outer Heaven, Yuan Qingdu's phoenix-winged gold-plated halberd was swung impenetrably, and then a golden light streaked across the sky. The next second, Yuan Qingdu's phoenix-winged gold-plated halberd directly pierced through the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance opposite him, and then the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance spat out a mouthful of blood-red fresh blood, and the huge indentation in his chest was still continuously gushing blood. He looked at Yuan Qingdu with lifeless eyes. Then his entire body slowly fell from the sky. Yuan Qingdu watched the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's body continuously falling from the sky. He did not choose to let go, but instead he once again threw a punch at the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The terrifying force directly shattered the body of the deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. After completing all this, Yuan Qingdu, without any hesitation, directly transformed into a golden light and disappeared into outer heaven. A moment later, Yuan Qingdu, holding his phoenix-winged gold-plated halberd, also appeared on the city wall of Chang'an City's north gate, and then he nodded to Sikong Changfeng in front of him. Then he stood calmly behind Sikong Changfeng, but at this moment his gaze was fixed on outer heaven above. while Yuan Qingdu dealt with the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Pei Yuanqing, who is currently in a fierce battle with the Deacon of Outer Heaven, also displayed his divine might. His silver hammer instantly flattened the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance in front of him. Then Pei Yuanqing touched the blood on his chest before leaving Outer Heaven with peace of mind. As for the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, he had already turned into specks of light and disappeared into Outer Heaven. Then, a silver-white light suddenly appeared on the city wall of Chang'an City's north gate. The next second, Pei Yuanqing, clad in a silver robe, appeared beside Yuan Qingdu. His silver robe was still stained with the enemy's blood, making Pei Yuanqing look extremely ferocious. Just as Pei Yuanqing's voice had just fallen on the city wall of Chang'an City's north gate, another ray of light fell beside Pei Yuanqing and the others. As the light slowly dispersed, Jiang Song, holding a long spear, stood amiably beside Pei Yuanqing and Yuan Qingdu. However, it could be seen that the tip of his long spear was still dripping blood, forming a stark contrast with his amiable face. And Pei Yuanqing, upon seeing Jiang Song appear before him, also nodded towards Jiang Song. He acknowledged the strength of Jiang Song, who was holding the long spear in front of him. As for how he acknowledged it, it was of course because Pei Yuanqing had been beaten by him. Chapter 316, Slaying the Invading Enemy. Ouyang Lingshue's speculation. After Pei Yuanqing and the others returned to the city walls of Chang'an City, Luo Cheng and the others quickly dealt with the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and returned to the city walls of Chang'an City. At this moment, the only one left unresolved was Elder Hua's opponent, the mid-stage Saint King cultivator from the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Elder Hua and this cultivator from the Heavenly Dao Alliance naturally knew that the other battlefields had already concluded. Elder Hua casually glanced at the mid-stage Saint King cultivator from the Heavenly Dao Alliance in front of him, then looked down at Sikong Changfeng and the others, who were waiting for him to finish the great battle. Old friend, it's time for us to end this fight. Then Elder Hua gently patted his sword box and spoke, his voice tinged with a sense of daze and vicissitudes. However, at this moment, a terrifying sword intent emanated from Elder Hua's body. A hint of worry appeared in the eyes of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's vice envoy in front of him. He had not expected the experts of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to all perish so easily in this small eastern region. However, at this moment, the Heavenly Dao Alliance's vice envoy also felt this terrifying and powerful sword intent. He quickly turned his gaze towards Elder Hua in front of him. At this moment, Elder Hua no longer had his initial laziness. His eyes were filled with a serious expression. At the same time, an aura like that of a descending sword god could be seen emanating from him. Seeing this, the Heavenly Dao Alliance's vice envoy inwardly sighed, realizing it was bad, but at this moment he no longer had a chance to resist. A terrifying sword glow streaked across the sky, then shot towards the Heavenly Dao Alliance's vice envoy. This terrifying sword glow directly split the entire sky in two. At the same time, an ancient and overbearing aura spread throughout the entire outer heaven. The Heavenly Dao Alliance's vice envoy merely felt this aura and completely perished. A trace of blood appeared at his throat, and the next second, he slowly and unbelievably closed his eyes. Elder Hua, without any surprise, gently pointed a finger at the Heavenly Dao Alliance's vice envoy. Then, this vice envoy transformed into specks of starlight and vanished into the outer heaven. After the Heavenly Dao Alliance's vice envoy perished, Elder Hua once again patted his sword box. After all the treasured swords were retracted, Elder Hua slowly walked towards the city walls of Chang'an City. Within a few breaths, Elder Hua also returned to the city walls of Chang'an City. And as Elder Hua returned to the city walls of Chang'an City, an omen of a Saint King's demise once again appeared in the sky. Although this omen was not as terrifying as the previous one, the omen of a Saint King-level expert's demise still spread throughout Chang'an City and was even continuously spreading towards the eastern region. The people of Wuji's sect, who were on their way, naturally also saw this. The sect master of Wuji's sect looked in the direction of Chang'an City with an incredulous expression. Then his gaze slowly turned towards the several old men beside him. These old men also nodded when they saw the gaze of the sect master of Wuji's sect, but an incredulous expression could also be seen in their eyes. Then, the group rushed even faster towards Chang'an City. Although they did not know what exactly had happened in Chang'an City, judging from the current situation, a heaven-shaking great battle had definitely occurred in Chang'an City. Otherwise, a Saint King-level expert would not have perished so easily. What's going on? Why has the terrifying omen appeared in the sky again? Has something bad happened in our eastern region? That shouldn't be possible, right? No matter what, our eastern region is managed by a top power like the Great Xia Dynasty. How could something bad happen? Perhaps an enemy has invaded, and so the emperor, representing the great Xia dynasty, slew the enemy, which caused this omen. I wonder what terrifying enemy has perished to bring about such a terrifying omen. It's a pity we couldn't witness this great battle. The people of the eastern region, who were already shocked when the previous omen appeared, now looked towards Chang'an City with even greater shock. They hadn't expected such terrifying omens to appear in the eastern region within such a short time, although their cultivation was too weak to know what had happened. But now, these cultivators in the eastern region firmly believed that their emperor could resolve all enemies. In their hearts, Chu Fan was like a godlike existence, so no matter how powerful the enemy, they could not defeat their great Xia dynasty. However, at this moment, most of the cultivators were still rushing towards Chang'an City. They also wanted to see what exactly had happened in Chang'an City. But at this moment, Chang'an City seemed very calm. Evidently, the cultivators and common people in Chang'an City had not yet reacted to the recent changes. They hadn't expected such terrifying enemies to be so easily dealt with by their emperor, or perhaps it could be said, so easily dealt with by the experts of their great Xia dynasty. In the imperial palace, Ouyang Lingxue also looked at the sky with an incredulous expression. As the princess of a top power in the northern region, she naturally knew what a Saint King level expert represented. But she hadn't expected that within a short period, the great Xia dynasty had slain 2 Saint King level experts, and done so with such ease. It was as if 2 small cultivators had been dealt with. The great Xia dynasty is indeed not as simple as we imagined. 2 Saint King level experts were so easily dealt with by the great Xia dynasty. I'm afraid the strength of the great Xia dynasty is not far off from our empires. Elder Hua, standing beside her, also spoke with a look of shock in his eyes. At the same time, his initial contempt for the great Xia dynasty had now disappeared. After all, the great Xia dynasty could so easily produce 2 Saint King level experts, and these 2 Saint King level experts had so easily dealt with 2 Saint Kings. How could such a great Xia dynasty be as simple as they imagined? One must know that even the Shuanghua Empire would find it difficult to produce 2 Saint King level experts, as those Saint King level experts all needed to cultivate in seclusion, and some Saint King level experts' lifespans had already reached their end. They would not appear unless the Empire's survival was at stake. However, the 2 Saint King level experts of the great Xia dynasty were very young, clearly capable of acting without limit. How does the Prince of Jinbei's estate have such terrifying strength? Are they also an external power? At this moment, Ouyang Lingxue frowned, looking in the direction of the imperial palace's interior. At this point, she had begun to disbelieve that the Prince of Jinbei's estate was originally a power of the eastern region. After all, the strength now displayed by the great Xia dynasty, which was formerly the Prince of Jinbei's estate, had far exceeded her imagination. Chapter 317 news reached the Heavenly Dao Alliance, the powerful Heavenly Dao Alliance. After Elder Hua heard Ouyang Lingxue's words, he also started pondering. According to their initial understanding of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, for someone inside the Prince of Jinbei's estate to be able to achieve a breakthrough to the Dharma aspect realm was already considered an impressive existence. But he didn't expect that the current Prince of Jinbei's estate actually had a Saint King level expert. Of course, the current Prince of Jinbei's estate is no longer called the Prince of Jinbei's estate, but the great Xia dynasty which unified the entire eastern region. Even so, the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate far exceeded their imagination. Perhaps the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, had once joined a top force in the central region, and these experts were sent by those top forces in the central region to protect Chu Fan. Elder Hua, unsure of what was happening, began to speculate. With such terrifying strength, perhaps nowhere else but the central region could possess it. After all, if it were the northern region, they wouldn't be able to spare so many experts to protect one person. Even Ouyang Lingxue, the county princess of the Shuanghua Empire, one of the 2 major top forces in the northern region, only had 1 Saint entry-level guardian. Although I don't know why the strength of the great Xia dynasty is so terrifying, having such a formidable great Xia dynasty will be the best choice for my revenge. Ouyang Lingxue's eyes brightened at this time. Initially, she might have been afraid of involving the great Xia dynasty, but now she was not afraid at all. After all, the strength of the great Xia dynasty had already far exceeded her imagination. Having such a terrifying great Xia dynasty naturally would not disappoint her. However, at this time, Ouyang Lingxue felt a slight unease in her heart, as this was originally the Ouyang family's matter, yet now she had involved the former Prince of Jinbei's estate. In fact, what she didn't know was that her enemies were already heading toward the eastern region and were even planning to directly attack the great Xia dynasty later on. If the great Xia dynasty hadn't been powerful, perhaps all the forces in the entire eastern region would have been annihilated by her enemies. Meanwhile, Sikong Changfeng and the others had returned to the imperial palace. Although this great battle seemed fierce from the outside, for them, it was merely the act of slaying an enemy. After Sikong Changfeng dealt with the enemy, Chu Fan once again became leisurely. As for worrying about more powerful experts from the Heavenly Dao Alliance descending upon the eastern region, Chu Fan had no worries in his heart. He did not believe that the Heavenly Dao Alliance would send experts above the Great Saint level to the eastern region to deal with their Great Xia dynasty. Furthermore, Zhao Yue was about to achieve a breakthrough to the Great Saint realm. As for the assassins arranged to enter the central region, they also headed there under Zhao Gao's arrangements. However, the common people and cultivators of Chang'an City were completely shaken at this time. After all, the enemy they had dealt with this time was too powerful. It even made the common people and cultivators of Chang'an City feel somewhat unbelievable. But all of this had nothing to do with Chu Fan inside the Imperial Palace. Just as Chang'an City was cheering, the Tiandao Alliance leader on the Heavenly Dao Alliance side was contemplating how to take down the top forces in the central region. Since the Heavenly Dao Alliance appeared, their main goal has been to unify the entire world. So over the years, the Heavenly Dao Alliance has continuously expanded its influence. However, the Heavenly Dao Alliance was later obstructed by the top forces, so now the Heavenly Dao Alliance does not dare to expand its power so openly. And those top forces did not continue to be hostile toward the Heavenly Dao Alliance at this time. Although the Heavenly Dao Alliance did not possess the heritage of an Emperor-grade force, there were several quasi-Emperor level experts within the Heavenly Dao Alliance. This is also the reason why no major war broke out between the Heavenly Dao Alliance and the top forces. The Heavenly Dao Alliance lacked the heritage of a top Emperor-grade force, but those top forces rarely had quasi-Emperor level experts who could emerge. Thus, a balance was formed between the two sides. Just as the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was contemplating how to deal with these top forces, an old man hurriedly walked in from outside. Although this old man looked very aged, the aura emanating from him had already reached the Saint King level. When the Tiandao Alliance leader saw this old man, he slowly raised his head to look at him, and at the same time, a trace of unease arose in the Tiandao Alliance leader's heart. After all, he knew the old man's position. For the old man to come to him in such a hurry meant that a major event had definitely occurred. However, the news the old man spoke validated the Tiandao Alliance leader's conjecture. Alliance leader, the judicial envoy, and all the cultivators of the Heavenly Dao Alliance sent to the eastern region have perished. Upon hearing the old man's words, the Tiandao Alliance leader's face instantly darkened. He hadn't expected a mere eastern region to cause the death of their Heavenly Dao Alliance's judicial envoy. One must know that their Heavenly Dao Alliance's judicial envoy possessed Saint King level strength. Of course, the most important thing was that the judicial envoy sent to the eastern region was dispatched by him. Did he send back any useful information before his death? The alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance put away the gloom on his face and then slowly asked the old man. No, the life tablet shattered very quickly. Clearly, the enemy's strength far exceeded theirs. After hearing the Tiandao Alliance leader's words, the old man bowed his head deeply and slowly spoke to the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, the old man was clearly somewhat afraid of this alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. It seems this small eastern region is not as simple as we thought. Have the people of the Heavenly Dao Alliance investigate whether the so-called Great Xia dynasty in the eastern region has any backing forces. But remember not to make a move. After all, the fall of the judicial envoy means that there is an existence in the Great Xia dynasty at the Saint King consummation realm. Without mobilizing a Great Saint level Hall Master, it probably cannot be resolved, but the current situation in the central region does not allow my Heavenly Dao Alliance's Hall Masters to appear elsewhere. After thinking for a moment, this alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance slowly spoke, though he seemed somewhat helpless at this time. The Heavenly Dao Alliance is an alliance composed of numerous experts, and the Heavenly Dao Alliance is also considered a top force. Among them, the cultivation of the Deacon of the Heavenly Dao Alliance reaches the Saint entry level. The envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance are all Saint King level expert, and the cultivation of the Advanced Hall Masters of the Heavenly Dao Alliance reaches the Great Saint level. There are more than 30 Hall Masters in total in the Heavenly Dao Alliance. These are just the Hall Masters of the Heavenly Dao Alliance on the surface, meaning the Heavenly Dao Alliance has more than 30 Great Saint level experts. As for the Palace Masters of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, there are 3 of them, who are the 3 quasi-emperor level experts of the Heavenly Dao Alliance who have appeared in the eyes of the world. The alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance is also a Great Saint level expert. He can mobilize Hall Master level figures, but he cannot mobilize the Palace Masters. Chapter 318, The Great Xia Dynasty Exposed. Lu Jingtian Speculation from the Heavenly Profound Holy Land. Of course, the Heavenly Dao Alliance's strength couldn't be as simple as it appeared on the surface. Otherwise, how could they have become the #1 force in the Central Domain? Among the top forces in the Central Domain, there were also quasi-emperor level experts, and the Holy Lords of the top Holy Lands in the Central Domain were also great saint level experts. The Hall Masters of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had cultivation levels similar to the Holy Lords of the top Holy Lands in the Central Domain, but most of the experts in Holy Lands were Grand Elders or Old Ancestors. This was also the power of top forces. After all, every top force in the Central Domain had existed for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years, and some even for millions of years, so no one knew how many Old Ancestors they truly possessed. The main reason why the Heavenly Dao Alliance was called the #1 force in the Central Domain was that the experts displayed by the Heavenly Dao Alliance were too powerful. Ordinary Holy Lands only displayed a dozen or even a few great saint-level experts, but the Heavenly Dao Alliance had already displayed over 30 divine rank experts. Of course, the most important reason was that several hundred years ago, the Heavenly Dao Alliance directly confronted a top Holy Land in the Central Domain. If it weren't for the help of other emperors, this Holy Land would have probably been annihilated by the Heavenly Dao Alliance. It was also because of this incident that the Heavenly Dao Alliance was propelled to the position of the #1 force in the Central Domain. And just as the Heavenly Dao Alliance began investigating the Great Xia Dynasty, news of the judicial envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance falling also began to slowly spread. The top forces in the Central Domain quickly received news that the judicial envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had fallen in the Great Xia Dynasty. At the same time, these top forces also began to gather information on the Great Xia Dynasty. After all, they naturally had to pay attention to a formidable person capable of dealing with the judicial envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, when they had gathered all the information on the Great Xia Dynasty, they were dumbfounded. These top forces had not expected a small Eastern Domain force to dare to kill the judicial envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Of course, what surprised them even more was that such a barren place had given rise to a Great Xia Dynasty. However, at this time, these top forces did not take the Great Xia Dynasty seriously. After all, the strongest in the Great Xia Dynasty was merely a Saint King, and Saint King level cultivators were not very powerful in their forces. Since any elder in their forces could reach the Saint King level, they did not particularly value the Great Xia Dynasty. Some people were just curious about how long it would take for the Great Xia Dynasty to be annihilated by the Heavenly Dao Alliance, as the Heavenly Dao Alliance was simply preoccupied at the moment. Otherwise, the Heavenly Dao Alliance would have probably already annihilated the Great Xia Dynasty. However, what these top forces didn't know was that their underestimation was precisely what led to the rapid growth of the Great Xia Dynasty. In just a few years, the Great Xia Dynasty unified the Eastern, Western, Southern, and Northern domains. And by then, what they would face would not just be the Great Xia Dynasty, but the Great Xia Imperial Dynasty. Tianqian Holy Land, one of the top Holy Lands in the Central Domain, naturally also received this news. The Holy Lord of Tianqian Holy Land was somewhat surprised when he learned that the Eastern Domain had been replaced by a force called the Great Xia Dynasty. At the same time, he also recalled that Chu Fan came from the Eastern Domain, and from a prince's estate within a country in the Eastern Domain. Thinking of this, he began to search for information about the Prince of Junbei's estate where Chu Fan resided. But after searching for a moment, a look of shock appeared on the face of the Holy Lord of Tianqian Holy Land. Because he discovered that the former Prince of Junbei's estate had become the current Great Xia Dynasty, and Chu Fan, the younger brother of their Tianqian Holy Land Saint Chu Fan, had now become the emperor of the Great Xia Dynasty. After reading this information, Lu Jingtian, the Holy Lord of Tianqian Holy Land, now had a look of disbelief in his eyes, in addition to shock. How could a force that once only possessed the spirit roaming realm grow to this extent, and in just over a decade at that? Then, Lu Jingtian was seen muttering as he looked in the direction of the Eastern Domain, but at this moment, his brows began to furrow tightly. Subsequently, Lu Jingtian directly summoned the Guardian who had accompanied Xiao Zi to the Eastern Domain last time to the main hall. And when this Guardian saw his Holy Lord, his eyes were filled with admiration, but he still bowed to his Holy Lord, and then looked at his Holy Lord with a puzzled expression. Regarding the Prince of Junbei's estate where Saint Chu Fan resided, what did you discover, or what was different, when you went there last time? Lu Jingtian looked at the old man in front of him and slowly asked, and after speaking, he stared intently at the old man in front of him. The Prince of Junbei's estate where the saint once resided was indeed a bit strange. The saint once told us that the strongest existence in the Prince of Junbei's estate was merely at the spirit roaming realm, but after we went to the Eastern Domain this time, your subordinate discovered that the strongest in the Prince of Jinbei's estate are Chu Fan and several experts around him. Among those experts around him, some have even reached the true king realm. And when we returned, your subordinate also sensed that there was a saint entry-level expert in the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The old man was also somewhat surprised after hearing Lu Jingtian's words. He hadn't expected his holy lord to call him just to ask about this matter, but he quickly recounted what he had seen in the Eastern Domain. As he spoke, a look of surprise appeared on the old man's face. The surprise on his face was not only about the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate in the Eastern Domain, but also about his holy lord mentioning the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Oh, by the way, holy lord, Chu Fan is Saint Chu Chen's younger brother. He also possesses an innate Dao Body, and when we returned, his strength had already surpassed the saints. Then, the old man seemed to remember something else, and he added to Lu Jingtian in front of him. Lu Jingtian was also somewhat surprised after hearing the old man's words. At the same time, he hadn't expected that such a small place would produce an innate Dao Body, and besides this innate Dao Body, their Tianxian Holy Land's Chu Chan possessed a supreme bone. Could it be that a top force from the central domain has intervened? After all, an innate Dao Body is indeed worth their intervention. A thoughtful expression appeared on Lu Jingtian's originally puzzled face. If what the old man said was true, then Chu Fan, who possessed an innate Dao Body, could indeed join a top force in the central domain. And it was also possible for these top forces to help Chu Fan establish an imperial dynasty. So, Lu Jingtian also began to guess which force Chu Fan had joined. As for the Heavenly Dao Alliance, he immediately ruled them out, as the envoy of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had just fallen in the Eastern Domain. After ruling out the Heavenly Dao Alliance, Lu Jingtian also began to guess about other forces, but no matter how much he guessed, he couldn't find any clues, as Chu Fan had not relied on any force from the Central Domain. Chapter 319 Enemies arrive at the Sky-Piercing Prince's Mansion. The arrogant people of the Sky-Piercing Prince's Mansion. Just as the Holy Lord of the Tianxian Holy Land, Lu Jingtian, was still guessing about the power behind Chu Fan. Meanwhile, another major event occurred in the eastern region of the Great Xia Dynasty. Strictly speaking, this event did not originate within the Great Xia Dynasty, but rather the Saint Realm cultivators dispatched by the Qingtian Prince had already arrived in the eastern region. Since they were all Saint entry-level cultivators, they were naturally discovered by the net of Luo the moment they arrived in the eastern region. Given that the net of Luo could detect the appearance of even a Saint King level expert, they could quickly pinpoint these minor Saint entry-level cultivators. Inside the Imperial Palace of Chang'an City, Zhao Gao immediately informed Chu Fan of the news that the Saint Realm cultivators from the Qingtian Prince's residence had arrived in the eastern region. It truly is an eventful autumn. I didn't expect that just after those fellows from the Heavenly Dao Alliance were dealt with, this group of assassins from the Qingtian Prince's residence would already arrive. Chu Fan was slightly surprised upon hearing Zhao Gao's words, but a hint of killing intent quickly appeared on his face. After all, he had just dealt with those so-called envoys from the Heavenly Dao Alliance, and now enemies were appearing again. If he did not have to stay in the Imperial Palace of Chang'an City to accompany Qingyao, Chu Fan would definitely put on his armor and grab his long spear to meet these enemies himself. Let Zilong and the others deal with these enemies directly. Afterward, let the Great Xia Dynasty army rest for half a year. After half a year, we will march on the western region. Chu Fan looked at Zhao Gao in front of him and spoke slowly. In reality, based on the current strength of the Great Xia Dynasty, they could already march on the western region. It was just that his first child was about to be born, so Chu Fan did not plan to be absent from the eastern region when his first child was born. This was also why Chu Fan planned to delay for half a year. After all, with his child about to be born, how could he, as a father, be fighting in the western region? Furthermore, during these 6 months, their Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region could further enhance the strength of its army. It was impossible for Chu Fan to use only the armies he summoned for every campaign, although the armies trained by Yu Fei and the others could not compare to the summoned armies. However, the armies they trained were still formidable forces. Therefore, when summoning was unnecessary, Chu Fan naturally wanted Yu Fei and the others to train some powerful armies. After hearing Chu Fan's command, Zhao Gao instantly relayed the message to the net of Luo. Zhao Zilong, Lu Bu, and the others were already waiting at the edge of the eastern region for the enemy's arrival, so they quickly received the message from the net of Luo. Upon receiving the message from the net of Luo, Zhao Zilong and Lu Bu quickly led the Saint entry-level cultivators of the Great Xia Dynasty toward the direction where the enemies were located. At this moment, on the border between the eastern region and the northern region, hundreds of men in black dressed in black were heading toward the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region. Their target at this time was Chang'an City of the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region. Among this group of men in black, the cultivation of the two men in black leading the group had clearly reached the perfected saint realm. From this, it could be seen how strongly determined the Qingtian prince's residence was to eliminate Ouyang Lingshu at this time. Moreover, besides these two perfected saint realm cultivators, there were dozens of entering saint realm cultivators, while the rest of the men in black were all true king realm cultivators. If this were the eastern region of the past, it probably wouldn't have been able to withstand even a single one of these men in black, but the current Great Xia dynasty could easily crush these men in black. Because the cultivation of these men in black was all above the true king realm, their travel speed was extremely fast. In just a few breaths, they crossed dozens of miles. They quickly swept across the sky above the eastern region. Soon, these men in black appeared over a desert. However, what was strange was that the men in black stopped at this time. The two leading captains among the men in black stared in surprise at a direction straight ahead. Clearly, there was something ahead that warranted their attention. Just as the men in black were still feeling curious, sounds of tearing through space appeared in their ears, one after another. Immediately afterward, a heavenly halberd slowly descended from the sky and plunged directly into the desert in front of them. At the same time, a terrifying and domineering aura could be felt emanating from this heavenly halberd. Then, a man wearing purple-red armor appeared before everyone. After the man appeared, he gently pulled out the heavenly halberd that was stuck in the desert. His gaze contemptuously swept over the men in black in front of him. Following the appearance of this man, the sky seemed to be crossed by another flash of lightning. A handsome young man wearing silver armor and holding a silver long spear appeared beside the young man in purple-red armor. The one wearing the silver armor was precisely Zhao Zilong, and the one beside him holding the heavenly halberd was undeniably Lu Bu. Following the arrival of Lu Bu and Zhao Zilong, sounds of tearing through the sky continued to ring out. Immediately after, dozens of figures appeared behind them. The aura emanating from these figures had all reached the entering saint realm. Moreover, most of the auras were still in the saint entry mid-stage, or even the late saint realm. Is it appropriate for you all to sneak into my Great Xia dynasty so furtively? Only after everyone had arrived did Zhao Zilong slowly take a step forward, then look at the men in black before him and speak. His voice was filled with terrifying oppressive might, instantly making the group of men in black feel a horrifying pressure bearing down on them. Just as this oppressive might was about to fall upon the men in black, the leading perfected saint realm cultivator among the men in black slowly stepped forward. The aura on his body instantly erupted, resisting the terrifying oppressive might emitted by Zhao Zilong. I didn't expect this minor place to actually possess cultivators like you, who have reached the perfected saint realm. It seems we have underestimated the eastern region. However, relying solely on you today, I fear you cannot stop us from entering the eastern region. Surprise also flashed in the eyes of this man in black, but at this moment, he appeared extremely arrogant. Clearly, his impression of the eastern region had not changed, and he remained just as aggressive toward the eastern region. Intruders into my Great Xia dynasty shall be executed without mercy. Lu Bu was not as soft-spoken as Zhao Zilong. Seeing the arrogance in the man in black's eyes, he immediately stepped forward and spoke fiercely to the man in black before him. After speaking, the devil god-like aura on Lu Bu's body instantly erupted. This caused sand and dust to fly up everywhere, as if the sand was trying to bury all the men in black in front of him. Chapter 3:20 The Great Battle Erupts, the Weak Man in Black. And that man in black of the perfected saint realm who stepped forward, upon sensing the chi emanating from Lu Bu, looked at Lu Bu with an expression of disbelief. Although they had sensed the chi of Zhao Zilong and Lu Bu from the start, he had not expected that a mere eastern region would possess such terrifying figures. This is the internal affair of my Shuanghua Empire. Does the Great Xia dynasty intend to interfere? The man in black naturally knew the prowess of the individuals before him, so he began to change his rhetoric, though his eyes were still filled with menace. Of course, the man in black did not plan to continue causing trouble for the Great Xia dynasty, as the Great Xia dynasty now seemed far less simple than they had imagined. Just the saint entry-level cultivators who appeared here were no weaker than them, so their current target immediately shifted to Ouyang Lingxue. As for the Great Xia dynasty, they would wait for their prince's command before dealing with it. This general naturally will not concern himself with the internal affairs of your Shuanghua Empire, but those who dare trespass upon my Great Xia dynasty shall be executed without mercy. Zhao Zilong naturally understood the meaning of the fellow before him, so he slowly stepped forward, holding his long spear, and spoke. At the same time, Zhao Zilong also made his stance clear. If the person they wanted to kill was not within the Great Xia dynasty, the Great Xia dynasty would absolutely ignore it. But if they intended to enter the Great Xia dynasty to kill people within the Great Xia dynasty, the Great Xia dynasty would absolutely not let the matter rest. After hearing Zhao Zilong's words, a look of anger instantly appeared in the man in black's eyes. As a saint-level expert, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? Following that, a trace of killing intent appeared in his eyes when he looked at Zhao Zilong. Zilong, why waste so many words on him? Since he wants to die, let him die. Lu Bu stepped forward, sounding somewhat displeased. Although Zhao Zilong was the leader of their group, Lu Bu truly could not hold back at this moment. He had already noticed the killing intent in the eyes of the fellow before him. The only reason he was able to restrain himself now was because Chu Fan had instructed him to listen to Zhao Zilong when he came out. Otherwise, he would have already charged forward with his heavenly halberd. In that case, let the Great Xia dynasty be destroyed. When a leading man in black heard Lu Bu's words, he could no longer suppress the rage in his heart. He glared fiercely at Lu Bu and Zhao Zilong and spoke. After speaking, he waved his hand toward the people behind him. At the same time, a gleaming, cold great saber appeared in his hand. Holding the great saber, he charged directly towards Zhao Zilong. However, before the great saber in his hand could land on Zhao Zilong, it was blocked by a heavenly halberd. You talk too much. Today, this lord will chop you into 10,000 pieces. Following this, an enraged voice rang out beside Zhao Zilong. The owner of this voice was none other than Lu Bu. Among this group of men in black, the one who angered him the most was this man in black of the perfected saint realm. Thus, he directly used his heavenly halberd to block the attack. Lu Bu then lightly pulled back his heavenly halberd and immediately struck the man in black before him without the slightest mercy. The terrifying force directly sent the man in black flying away. Lu Bu, holding his heavenly halberd, then charged toward the man in black. The terrifying chi emanating from his body completely erupted. At this moment, the saint entry-level soldiers of the Great Xia dynasty could no longer hold back. They all drew their weapons and charged toward the group of men in black. Zhao Zilong, holding his silver spear, locked onto another cultivator of the perfected saint realm among the men in black. His silver spear looked like a white dragon, directly piercing the space before it and shooting toward the man in black. The terrifying spear intent directly crushed down upon the man in black. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Zilong's long spear appeared before the man in black. The man in black, seeing this, quickly concealed himself within space, instantly vanishing from Zhao Zilong's sight. But how could Zhao Zilong possibly let him escape? Zhao Zilong wielded the silver spear with both hands, and then a phoenix appeared behind Zhao Zilong. The next second, the phoenix crushed all the surrounding space. At that moment, the man in black had nowhere to hide and reappeared directly in front of Zhao Zilong. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at Zhao Zilong before him. He had not expected that Zhao Zilong would completely shatter the surrounding space just to find his location. He had originally intended to launch a sneak attack on Zhao Zilong, but now he had no chance at all. Zhao Zilong did not give him a chance to react. The long spear in his hand swiftly shot toward the man in black. Seeing this, the man in black quickly took out his own weapon. The weapon in this man in black's hand was also a long spear, but the tip of his long spear had 3 edges. It looked more like a 3-pointed double-edged saber, but it was certainly lacking compared to a true 3-pointed double-edged saber. Zhao Zilong was also slightly surprised to see the weapon in his hand. However, the silver spear in his hand showed no mercy and stabbed directly toward the man in black. Seeing this, the man in black hurriedly used the long spear in his hand to block the long spear held by Zhao Zilong. The 3 edges on the tip of his long spear played their role, immediately locking Zhao Zilong's silver spear onto his long spear. A look of excitement appeared on the man in black's face upon seeing this, as if he had already secured victory in this great battle. But how could Zhao Zilong let him lock on his long spear so easily? The strength in Zhao Zilong's body rapidly doubled. The next second, the long spear in his hand flew out, and the flying long spear stabbed directly toward the man in black's chest. The look of excitement on the man in black's face instantly vanished, replaced by an expression of panic. He was then seen quickly dodging the long spear. However, even so, Zhao Zilong's long spear still pierced through one of his shoulders, creating a bloody hole there. Before the man in black could react, Zhao Zilong's hand had already reconnected with his long spear. Looking at the man in black before him, Zhao Zilong showed a trace of helplessness on his face. His helplessness was not directed at the man in black before him. It was mainly because this man in black's strength was too weak. He couldn't even force Zhao Zilong to truly display his ability. With the man in black's strength being so weak, Zhao Zilong lost interest. Thus, the long spear in his hand quickly swung, and a silver dragon flew directly out from Zhao Zilong's body, swiftly charging toward the man in black before him. Chapter 321, The Ruthless Lu Bu. The crushing battle ends, and Zhao Zilong finishes with a powerful ultimate move. As this silver dragon appeared, the shock on the man in black's face could no longer be concealed. However, at this moment, he naturally felt the threat of death, so he quickly wielded the long spear in his hand, and the next second, a three-headed giant wolf appeared behind him. This three-headed giant wolf seemed demonic and was extremely powerful. But the instant this three-headed giant wolf appeared, the attack launched by Zhao Zilong was already right in front of him. The next second, the silver dragon shattered the giant wolf with a single claw, and simultaneously, the giant dragon pierced through the man in black's chest. Having instantly killed a man in black in the perfected saint realm, Zhao Zilong slowly retracted his long spear before turning his gaze toward the other men in black. At this moment, the other men in black were also having a tough time. The figures Chu Fan summoned were, after all, the elites of their own worlds. Therefore, their strength was naturally not weaker than the saint realm cultivators of this world. Thus, the cultivator team of the Great Xia Dynasty was currently presenting a crushing, overwhelming combat performance against the group of men in black before them. Moreover, some of these men in black were cultivators of the true king realm. Among all the battles, the fiercest was likely that of Yin 13. Due to the previous group enhancement, Yin 13's cultivation had been raised to the perfected saint realm. Now, wielding his long sword, he was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep among the men in black. Slaying a man in black with every sword strike truly became a tangible reality for him. In just a short moment, he had dealt with dozens of men in black, and among those men in black, several had already reached the saint entry level. Because Yin 13's strength was terrifying, these men in black were constantly retreating when they saw the longsword-wielding youth before them. Unfortunately, they could not escape Yin 13's judgment, and men in black continuously fell beneath his sword. As for the other experts of the Great Xia Dynasty, they were swiftly killing the men in black facing them. In just 15 minutes, more than half of the men in black had fallen. This was a crushing battle. Are the cultivators of the Shuanghua Empire all this weak? It seems my worries were unnecessary. Zhao Zilong frowned as he watched the massacre of the men in black. Initially, he had thought the enemies appearing in the eastern region this time might not be weak. That was why he had brought more than 10 extra experts from the Great Xia Dynasty this time, even bringing the great killing machine Yin 13, but he hadn't expected the enemy's strength to be so feeble. Although these enemies' cultivation had reached the saint entry level, with the lowest cultivation being the true king realm, these enemies truly appeared too weak in front of them. Seeing the one-sided battle, Zhao Zilong chose not to join the fight, as his participation or lack thereof made no difference at this point. Instead, he began inspecting the surrounding environment. Although the enemies this time were not very strong, as an extremely perfect commander, how could he allow danger to appear nearby? Just as Zhao Zilong began surveying the surroundings, the men in black before them were continuously falling. Of course, the most brutal scene was likely on Lu Bu's side, where his heavenly halberd relentlessly smashed against the man in black before him. However, Lu Bu's attacks did not kill the man in black. This was not because Lu Bu's strength was inferior to Zhao Zilong's. It was because this man in black had shown him some disrespect earlier, which was why Lu Bu was making the man in black before him suffer a fate worse than death. Now, the man in black in front of Lu Bu had no chance to fight back. Lu Bu slammed his heavenly halberd fiercely onto the man in black's body. The next second, the man in black was directly smashed into the desert before him by Lu Bu's terrifying strength. His entire body was embedded in the desert, leaving only his head above the sand. Lu Bu leaped down onto the desert, holding his heavenly halberd, and walked toward the man in black. Looking at Lu Bu, who resembled a demon god, a look of horror appeared in the man in black's eyes. Immediately afterward, the man in black quickly circulated the power within his body and escaped from the desert. However, the moment his body burst out of the sand, Lu Bu slammed him back down with his heavenly halberd. Then, the heavenly halberd in Lu Bu's hand continued to seal off the entire sky. This made it impossible for the man in black in the desert to move even an inch. At this moment, Lu Bu walked toward the man in black with a cruel smile. With every step he took, a deeper look of terror appeared on the man in black's face. How boring. You're so weak, yet you dare come to my Great Xia Dynasty. Lu Bu looked at the man in black, whose head was the only part visible, and curled his lips into a scornful smile. Then, he kicked the man in black's head out of the sky. The man in black's body remained in the desert. Looking at the flying head, Lu Bu lightly pointed his finger, and a purple beam of light shot directly toward the man in black's head. The next second, the flying head instantly exploded. Only after completing this did Lu Bu nod in satisfaction. And following Lu Bu's resolution of this man in black, The great battle on the other side of the battlefield also began to conclude. Although these men in black included dozens of saint-level experts, they appeared incredibly weak against the group Zhao Zilong had brought. Therefore, in less than the time it takes an incense stick to burn, all these men in black perished in this nameless desert. After finishing everything, Zhao Zilong scanned the surroundings and, finding nothing amiss, slowly approached Lu Bu and Yin 13. Since the enemies have been dealt with, let us return. Zhao Zilong then looked at the surrounding battlefield and spoke slowly. After speaking, he leaped high into the air, and the next second, the long spear in his hand seemed to transform into a rain of 10,000 spears. These spears then rained down from the sky like raindrops, completely submerging the entire battlefield in just a few breaths. At the same time, the stirred-up sand completely buried the men in black within it. The figures of the men in black then completely vanished into this stretch of desert, which now appeared extremely calm, as if no great battle had ever taken place there. Only after completing all this did Zhao Zilong nod in satisfaction and lead the group toward Chang'an City of the Great Xia Dynasty. As for the desert burying the multitude of men in black, it gradually began to be forgotten by people. No one would ever imagine that an unprecedented great battle had once occurred here. No one could possibly imagine that hundreds of true King Realm and dozens of entering Saint Realm cultivators were buried beneath this stretch of desert. Chapter 3:22 Ouyang Qingtian's anger, his helpless decision. After resolving the battle in this area, Zhao Zilong and the others returned to Chang'an City of the Great Xia Dynasty. Chu Fan and the others were naturally not surprised that Zhao Zilong could eliminate the enemies that appeared this time. After Zhao Zilong and Lu Bu returned, they continued to guard the north city gate of Chang'an City, as if the hundreds of enemies who had fallen in the eastern region this time had never appeared. After dealing with these enemies, Chu Fan did not inform Ouyang Lingxue. After all, his relationship with Ouyang Lingxue was not very good to begin with, and he was instead looking forward to the appearance of subsequent enemies. At the same time, the Great Xia Dynasty had just dealt with the enemies from the Qingtian Prince's residence. At this moment, in the Qingtian Prince's residence, Ouyang Qingtian looked grimly towards the eastern region. By then, he had naturally received news that hundreds of experts from his residence had fallen in the eastern region. How could a mere eastern region cause my residence to lose so many experts? You must know that among them were dozens of Saint entry-level cultivators. Then, Ouyang Qingtian directly threw the cup in his hand, and it instantly shattered into countless pieces on the ground. He, himself, looked grimly at the two elders beside him. At this time, the two elders also looked at each other, not expecting such a terrifying expert to exist in the eastern region. This time, the residence could be said to have lost hundreds of experts. It could be said that their residence had lost more than half of its foundation. Although the Qingtian Prince's residence was considered the top prince's residence in the Shuanghua Empire, the Saint entry-level cultivators in their residence only numbered around 100, and dozens of them had fallen this time. This naturally shocked and angered Ouyang Qingtian. Your Highness, although the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region is not weak, they should not have such strong power to annihilate our residence's experts. I'm afraid this matter is related to your majesty. At this moment, an elder, seeing the grim and uncertain expression on Ouyang Qingtian's face, slowly stepped forward and spoke. However, it was also clear that this elder's expression was very grim. He also did not expect the residents to have lost so many experts this time. However, at this time, he did not turn his suspicion towards the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region, as the Great Xia Dynasty was not particularly powerful to them. The only possibility was the emperor of the Shuanghua Empire. Only he had the strength to deal with the residence's experts. According to reports from our scouts, no one left the imperial palace this time, which means Ouyang Batian did not send anyone to the eastern region this time. Our enemies this time should be the Great Xia Dynasty. Ouyang Qingtian also said grimly to the elder at this time. As a prince who had lived for 100 years, he had naturally guessed this possibility long ago. So, from the beginning, he had sent secret agents to inquire whether any experts had left the imperial palace. However, according to the news from the secret agents, he knew that no experts had left the imperial palace. From this, it could be seen that the experts of the prince's residence who fell in the eastern region were not dealt with by the one in the imperial palace. It was also because of this that he was so furious. If the Great Xia Dynasty's strength is truly so terrifying, then I'm afraid we cannot make a move next. After all, if all the residence's experts make a move, then it will be very easy for His Majesty to take down your Highness. Moreover, His Majesty cannot be allowed to know the news of the residence's heavy losses. The elder who had been silent all this time, after hearing Ouyang Qingtian's words, also slowly stood up and spoke to Ouyang Qingtian. At the same time, A worried look appeared on the elder's face. He could already foresee that if the one in the Imperial Palace knew that their residents had lost so many experts, he would definitely not stand by and watch. Although the Shuanghua Empire was still very calm at the moment, they also knew that their prince and the one in the Imperial Palace were irreconcilable. If that one knew that their residents had lost so many experts, that one would definitely make a move. Fortunately, their residents still had a Saint King-level old ancestor supporting them. Otherwise, their residents would not have been able to maintain a balance with that one. As for making a move against the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region, it was directly rejected by this elder. After all, the Great Xia Dynasty possessed such terrifying strength, so if they did not go all out, they would definitely not be able to deal with the Great Xia Dynasty. But if they went all out against the Great Xia Dynasty, the final outcome would probably be a lose-lose situation, and then the one in the Imperial Palace would reap the benefits of their struggle. Even a Saint King-level old ancestor who supported them might not continue to choose to support them. After all, if all the residence's experts truly fell, a single Saint King-level expert would naturally not be able to support the residents. It could even be said that by then, those Saint King-level old ancestors in a state of balance would also choose to help the one in the Imperial Palace. But this prince is unwilling. A mere native of the eastern region actually eliminated so many of my residence's top experts. Ouyang Qingtian naturally understood the elder's meaning. So, he angrily smashed the table in front of him and then looked towards the eastern region with hatred. At this time, although he understood the elder's meaning, he was still filled with resentment towards the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region. If it weren't for the Great Xia Dynasty, how could he be in such a difficult position? Your Highness, although we cannot move against the Great Xia Dynasty in the eastern region now, if we successfully take down the Shuanghua Empire, then wouldn't it be easy to deal with a mere Great Xia Dynasty? An elder beside Ouyang Qingtian slowly stepped forward and spoke. Although their residents had lost so many experts now. However, if they took down the Shuanghua Empire, they would still have a chance to deal with the Great Xia Dynasty. In this elder's mind, the Great Xia Dynasty would then be annihilated by them without any effort. Ouyang Qingtian also nodded helplessly after hearing the elder's words, evidently agreeing with the elder's idea at this time. What they didn't know was that this decision by the elder saved their lives. Otherwise, even the entire residence would not have been a match for the Great Xia Dynasty. After all, the Great Xia Dynasty's strength had far exceeded their imagination. Moreover, it was also because Chu Fan's child was about to be born. Otherwise, if Chu Fan directly mobilized his army, the entire Shuanghua Empire would not be able to withstand the Great Xia Dynasty's military might. Furthermore, Ouyang Qingtian did not know that in the future, when he was about to take down the Shuanghua Empire, he would be met by the terrifying army of the Great Xia Dynasty. At that time, he would not even have a chance to resist and would hand over the Shuanghua Empire. He, himself, would become the laughingstock of the entire empire. Chapter 323 The Establishment of the Underworld Shakes the Central Region. Time passed little by little, and Ouyang Lingxue of the Eastern Region also received news from Chu Fan regarding the annihilation of the Ouyang family. However, at this time, she did not choose to leave the Great Xia Dynasty. Instead, she remained in the Great Xia Dynasty, clearly indicating that Ouyang Lingxue had other intentions in her heart. Initially, she had not intended to rely on the power of the Great Xia Dynasty. But after witnessing the Great Xia Dynasty's true strength, she chose not to leave the Great Xia Dynasty immediately. Chu Fan and Zhao Gao naturally guessed her inner thoughts, but Chu Fan and Zhao Gao did not intend to pay attention to Ouyang Lingxue. After all, during this period, Chu Fan had to accompany Qingyao and Luo Qiani, while Zhao Gao was handling matters in the central region. After all, the experts of the net of Luo and the Saint entry-level experts of the Great Xia Dynasty had already entered the central region. At this time, the underworld of the Great Xia Dynasty had also been established in the central region. In a valley in the central region rich in spiritual qi, a tall tower quickly rose from the ground, and many terrifying auras were hidden within this tall tower. Every one of these auras had already reached the king realm and above. At the same time, the two characters' underworld were engraved in flowing dragon and phoenix script on the top of this tall tower. The pressure emitted by these two characters far exceeded that of an ordinary Saint King level cultivator. This pagoda was divided into 9 floors in total, and sitting on the 8th floor at this time were none other than Sword Demon Duga Chiobai and Sword Godly Chun Gang. The net of Luo, upon arriving in the central region, quickly chose this location for the underworld. Not only was this place secluded, but the spiritual qi was also much denser than in many other places. After the net of Luo chose this place as the residence of the underworld, the experts of the net of Luo quickly found the top forging great masters in the central region to construct this pagoda. Although this pagoda looked extremely dazzling, The first floor of this pagoda could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. The second floor could accommodate about 100,000 people, and the third floor could accommodate tens of thousands of people. Moving upwards, the number of people accommodated gradually decreased. The lowest floor of the pagoda was where the net of Luo, now the underworld, issued missions. As for the assassins on the second floor, they were all cultivators in the Dharma aspect realm, and the assassins on the third floor were all cultivators in the king realm. The assassins on the fourth floor were true king-level assassins. As for the assassins on the fifth floor, they were saint entry-level assassins, while the sixth and seventh floors remained unoccupied. Reporting, my lord, the underworld has now been successfully constructed. A saint entry-level assassin quickly appeared on the fifth floor and slowly spoke, while looking at Wang Chongyang on the fifth floor. Wang Chongyang's cultivation had reached the perfected saint realm, and he was only one step away from entering the saint king realm, so he was put in charge of the underworld this time. Since that is the case, then it is time to let the people of the central region know about our underworld. After hearing the assassin's words, Wang Chongyang slowly opened his eyes and looked up at the sky as he spoke. After speaking, he waved his hand towards the assassin in front of him. Upon hearing Wang Chongyang's words, the assassin understood Wang Chongyang's meaning. Soon, a night passed, and as the night went by, the entire central region began to shake, because they surprisingly discovered a token engraved with underworld appearing within their own factions. Even the top factions saw this token, and one must know that those top factions possessed great saint-level experts. From this, one could tell that this underworld was extraordinary. The smaller factions looked at this eerie and terrifying jade plaque with even greater fear. How could such a jade plaque appear overnight? And where exactly did this so-called underworld come from? As a top faction in the central region, Tianxian Holy Land naturally also received the underworld's jade plaque. The Holy Lord of the Tianxian Holy Land spoke with a frown. At this moment, he carefully examined the eerie and terrifying jade plaque in his hand, but his heart began to grow vigilant. After all, for someone to place this jade plaque in the Tianxian Holy Land without being discovered by him, a great saint-level expert, didn't that prove that the underworld's assassins were terrifying? Moreover, this jade plaque contained more than just the two characters underworld. The plaque also introduced the existence of the underworld and, of course, recorded that missions could be issued through the jade plaque. As long as one could afford the price, even a Saint King level expert could be assassinated. However, currently, the underworld was not assassinating great saint level experts. In fact, all of this was done intentionally by the underworld. Although the underworld's strength was indeed very powerful, it was still somewhat lacking compared to the top factions in the central region. However, many of the underworld's assassins were from the net of Luo, so their methods of concealment were naturally extremely powerful. This was also why they were able to deliver these jade plaques to the top factions. And at this time, it was not just the Holy Lord of the Tianxian Holy Land who was shocked. The leaders of the other top factions were also extremely astonished. How interesting. I didn't expect an organization called the Underworld to appear at this time, and this Underworld organization is also an assassin organization. I wonder how the Blood Rain Tower will deal with the Underworld organization. The Tiandao Alliance leader naturally also received this jade plaque, and he spoke with a frown. However, soon, a hint of curiosity appeared on the Tiandao Alliance leader's face. At this moment, he did not intend to investigate the news about the Underworld. After all, there was naturally an assassin organization in the central region, and that organization was the Blood Rain Tower. The Blood Rain Tower had once assassinated a great saint-level expert, which was why the Blood Rain Tower had become an assassin organization with a notorious reputation in the central region. Therefore, the appearance of the Underworld would naturally incur the dissatisfaction of the Blood Rain Tower. The Blood Rain Tower might even launch a massacre against the Underworld. If the Underworld could survive the Blood Rain Tower's massacre, then he would naturally investigate the Underworld. But if the Underworld could not even withstand the Blood Rain Tower's massacre, then how could the Underworld be worth his investigation? However, what the Tiandao Alliance leader did not know was that the Underworld was founded by his enemy, the Great Xia Dynasty. If he had known, he definitely would have sent out even stronger experts to destroy the Underworld. And at this moment, the situation was exactly as the Tiandao Alliance leader had imagined. The master of the Blood Rain Tower, upon learning of this matter, looked at the jade plaque in his hand with a gloomy expression. The master of the Blood Rain Tower was originally a great saint-level expert, but he had not expected an assassin organization to appear in the central region. This was tantamount to challenging their Blood Rain Tower. Since that is the case, then this seat will ensure your complete annihilation. The master of the Blood Rain Tower said with a gloomy face while looking at the jade plaque in his hand. At this moment, he naturally understood everything about the Underworld, and then he looked towards the distance with an expression full of playful amusement. Chapter 324 Assassination Mission appears, Wang Chongyang's plan. Although he did not know how powerful the Netherworld's experts truly were, he still had complete confidence in the Blood Rain Tower. Thus, he had already begun contemplating how to deal with the Netherworld. Meanwhile, the major factions had also begun investigating the Netherworld's existence. However, no matter how hard they searched, they could not find any relevant information about it. They only knew that the Netherworld had mysteriously appeared in the central region. They could not even locate its actual headquarters, only obtaining relevant information about it from the Jade Plaques. Furthermore, all the information had been released by the Netherworld. If they wished to contact the Netherworld, they had to do so through these Jade Plaques. Consequently, in just a few days, the entire central region became extremely lively, with all the cultivators discussing matters concerning the Netherworld. However, most cultivators adopted the stance of spectators enjoying a good show. After all, the Blood Rain Tower had existed for millions of years, and they did not believe the Blood Rain Tower would let the Netherworld off the hook. I never imagined the Netherworld would be so audacious, daring to ignore the Blood Rain Tower and appear directly in the central region, and even boldly distribute tokens to the major factions. Are they not afraid of being wiped out? A cultivator who received the news could not help but sigh with emotion. As he looked at the jade plaque in his hand, he wondered what he should think. This fellow must be kidding. The Netherworld dared to appear so openly, and even claimed to be capable of assassinating Saint King-level existences. This implies the Netherworld possesses Saint King-level experts, or perhaps even Great Saint-level experts. With such powerful existences, how could they possibly be afraid? That's right. More importantly, the major factions cannot even locate the Netherworld's current position, meaning the Netherworld is extremely safe for now. Moreover, the major factions' enemies are not currently the Netherworld. Currently, the only entity likely seeking trouble with the Netherworld is the Blood Rain Tower, as the Netherworld appearance has disrupted their arrangements. I wonder what sparks will fly between these two major powers. I'm truly looking forward to it. The cultivators of the central region were all eagerly discussing the Netherworld's existence. Although they did not know how powerful the Netherworld was, these cultivators felt it was unlikely to be wiped out so easily. After all, the Netherworld's actions this time had shocked the entire central region. Judging solely by this display of means, it was evident that the Netherworld's strength was absolutely formidable. In contrast to the bustling central region, the members of the Netherworld within its pagoda were remarkably quiet. Although all these Netherworld members had appeared in the central region, the peak experts were still cultivating inside the pagoda. After all, this pagoda served as the Netherworld's base of operations. The Netherworld members with slightly weaker cultivation were currently gathering intelligence regarding the central region. It seems the entire central region has been stirred up by us. I just wonder how the Blood Rain Tower will deal with this situation. Inside the Netherworld, Wang Chongyang slowly spoke while gazing at the outside world. Naturally, he was now aware of the Netherworld's reputation within the central region. However, although these cultivators were somewhat wary of the Netherworld, they had not truly taken it seriously, as the Netherworld had yet to assassinate anyone. Just as Wang Chongyang was reflecting, a Luo Wang assassin suddenly appeared beside him. The aura emanating from this Luo Wang assassin had already reached the True King realm. Reporting to the chief steward, there is an assassination mission. The Luo Wang assassin in the True King realm cupped his hands toward Wang Chongyang and spoke, then calmly awaited Wang Chongyang's reply. What is the cultivation level of the assassination target? Wang Chongyang was somewhat surprised after hearing this. He hadn't expected an assassination target to appear immediately after the Netherworld emerged. Thus, Wang Chongyang grew vigilant. The target of this assassination is a Saint entry-level sect master within a sect. The highest cultivation in this sect belongs to their old ancestor, whose cultivation has already reached the perfected Saint realm. The Netherworld's assassin relayed the information to Wang Chongyang, then waited in place for his response. Upon hearing this, Wang Chongyang waved his hand, signaling him to leave, as assassinating Saint entry-level cultivators was no longer a matter that True King realm cultivators could handle. It seems some people can't sit still and want to use this opportunity to test the strength of my Netherworld. After the Netherworld assassin departed, Wang Chongyang slowly turned his gaze toward the distance and spoke. Although this assassination target seemed simple, it was clear that someone intended to test the Netherworld's strength. It could even be argued that someone wanted to use this Saint entry-level target to draw out the Netherworld assassins. If that is truly the case, then the enemy that appears this time certainly won't be simple. Thinking of this, Wang Chongyang spoke with a solemn expression. Although the strength of the Netherworld that appeared in the central region was not weak, the highest cultivation among them belonged only to late Saint King Dugu Xiaobai. Of course, Dugu Qiubai was currently on the verge of a breakthrough to the Saint King Consummation Realm. But even if Dugu Qiubai were to achieve a breakthrough to the Saint King Consummation Realm, his cultivation would still not be the highest in the entire central region. After all, the cultivation of the Saint Lords of those top factions had already reached the Great Saint Realm. Subsequently, Wang Chongyang directly stepped onto the 8th floor of the Netherworld. Unsure of the enemy's true strength, Wang Chongyang wanted to invite either Dugu Qiubai or Li Chungang to take action. Of course, he wasn't asking the two of them to kill the target, but rather to assess how powerful the enemy was this time. Has an assassination target appeared? As soon as Wang Chongyang stepped onto the 8th floor of the Netherworld, he heard Li Chunggang's cynical voice ring out. At the same time, Li Chungang was shamelessly picking his nose. Reporting to Sword God, the assassination target this time is a Saint entry-level sect master. However, I fear this is a trap set by the enemy, so I wish to ask one of you two to come out and deal with the enemy this time. After hearing Li Chunggang's words, Wang Chongyang naturally cupped his hands respectfully toward him and spoke, his eyes reflecting a thoughtful expression. In that case, let me go this time. This fellow is busy making a breakthrough to the Saint King Consummation Realm during this period, so he has no time to go out. Li Chungang slowly stood up after hearing Wang Chongyang's words, and after speaking, he did not forget to glance at Dugu Qiubai beside him. Dugu Qiubai remained silent after hearing Li Chunggang's words, instead calmly sitting in meditation. However, it could be felt that the qi on his body was slowly increasing, having already far surpassed that of ordinary late Saint King experts. Chapter 325, The Panic-Stricken Cloud Dragon Sect, The Blood Rain Tower Scheme. The Cloud Dragon Sect might not be particularly famous throughout the central region. In fact, sects like are countless there, but today, the Cloud Dragon Sect was exceptionally lively. Inside the Cloud Dragon Sect's main hall, dozens of middle-aged men possessing extraordinary auras were currently engaged in a heated debate, and the expression on the face of the sect master, who sat in the main position, was extremely grim. According to the news received from the Blood Rain Tower, this time the Cloud Dragon Sect must face an assassin of the Saint entry level from the Underworld. It seems the Underworld intends to make our Cloud Dragon Sect their first stepping stone to renown in the central region. An elder, his face pale, spoke to the sect master seated above him. After he finished speaking, a look of gloom appeared on his face. What they were discussing at this moment was the news that one of their sect's elders was the target of an assassination by a killer from the Underworld. The source of this information was the world's #1 assassin organization, the Blood Rain Tower, and they did not doubt the source or the accuracy of the message in the slightest. After all, the world's #1 assassin organization would never joke with them about a matter of this gravity. No matter how powerful the Underworld is, do they truly dare to come to our Cloud Dragon Sect and execute an elder of the Cloud Dragon Sect? An elder, feeling indignant, looked at one of the elders in front of him and spoke. The target the Underworld intended to kill this time was precisely this elder of the Saint entry level. Although their sect was not considered significant in the entire central region, they still possessed an existence at the perfected Saint realm within their ranks. So how could they possibly fear the Underworld? Although the Underworld had some fame, it had never successfully assassinated a target, so at this moment, they naturally had no idea how powerful the Underworld was. While we don't know how powerful the Underworld is, it is undeniable that even the top powers are surprised by the Underworld's strength, so the Underworld's true power should not be too weak. A man with long, fiery red hair slowly stood up and spoke, though it was evident that the man's expression was extremely grim. After all, he was naturally displeased to see his own sect being provoked by outsiders. Indeed, how should we confront the Underworld's assassins? Surely their reputation is not unfounded. Are we merely going to wait for the Underworld's assassins to arrive? If so, how will the Central Region view the Cloud Dragon Sect in the future? We shouldn't be thinking about the future right now. We must focus on how to deal with the Underworld's assassins, as their strength is unlikely to be weak. If absolutely necessary, we should ask a top power to intervene, as we still possess one opportunity to request assistance from a top power. However, is it really appropriate to request a top power to act over such a small local matter? After all, this opportunity was secured by our old ancestor after 10,000 years of effort. As the middle-aged man's voice faded, the other elders immediately began discussing the matter among themselves, though it was clear that all of them carried a look of deep worry. After all, although they didn't know the full extent of the Underworld's power, but simply based on the fact that the Underworld could silently infiltrate those top powers and place jade tokens within them, it was clear that the Underworld's strength was absolutely not as simple as they imagined. Furthermore, although the Blood Rain Tower delivered the news, they knew that the Blood Rain Tower intended to use their sect situation to probe exactly how powerful the Underworld truly was. Since everyone wants to test the extent of the underworld's power, perhaps I should leave the Cloud Dragon sect. This way, even if I perish, it won't pose too great a threat to the Cloud Dragon sect. The elder of the Saint entry level, who was on the assassination list, stood up and spoke with resignation. In his eyes, besides determination, there was a profound sense of helplessness. At this moment, he did not wish to implicate the sect where he had lived for hundreds of years. After all, the hundreds, even thousands, of years he had lived were spent striving solely for the sect. If the sect had to be abandoned for the sake of his life, he would rather take his own life. This was the reason he stood up so resolutely, wanting to avoid implicating the sect. That's enough. Although the underworld's strength is quite mysterious, our Cloud Dragon sect is not easily bullied. What's more, the Blood Rain Tower has sent experts to support the Cloud Dragon sect this time. Just as this elder stood up, the sect master of the Cloud Dragon sect slowly rose and waved his hand at the assembled elders below. He naturally hoped that his elders would remain united. Moreover, the current situation had not yet reached the point where he needed to send his elder out to die. If this elder remained within the Cloud Dragon sect, there might still be a glimmer of hope, but if he truly left the Cloud Dragon sect, he would have no chance of survival. Sect Master, is the Blood Rain Tower genuinely intending to support us? After hearing the sect master's words, the elder spoke to him with some worry. After finishing, a complex look appeared in his eyes. Although the Cloud Dragon sect was not overly powerful, they did not want the Cloud Dragon sect to become subordinate to others. Upon hearing this elder's concerns, the other elders also looked at the sect master with worried expressions. Rest assured, the Blood Rain Tower's primary target this time is the underworld. They naturally disregard our Cloud Dragon sect. This confrontation can essentially be called a clash between two major powers. The sect master of the Cloud Dragon sect felt somewhat helpless after hearing his elders' concerns, and he also knew why the Blood Rain Tower was offering assistance. The Blood Rain Tower's main objective is simply to investigate how powerful the underworld truly is, which means the Cloud Dragon sect holds merely the role of a supporting player in this confrontation. Then if the Blood Rain Tower is defeated by the underworld, won't the Cloud Dragon sect fall into decline or possibly even face total annihilation? The elder with the long, fiery red hair who had just spoken stepped forward again and slowly voiced his concern. After he finished speaking, his brows began to furrow tightly. Although they knew that the Cloud Dragon sect might achieve victory this time with the Blood Rain Tower's help, if they lost this gamble, the entire Cloud Dragon sect would be annihilated. It could be said that this gamble was extremely significant for the Cloud Dragon sect. We have no other choice now. The arrow is on the bowstring and must be released. The sect master of the Cloud Dragon sect naturally understood the elder's concern, so he looked at the elder and spoke with great helplessness. After speaking, the sect master of the Cloud Dragon sect gazed wistfully toward the horizon. At this moment, he could only pray in his heart that the Cloud Dragon sect will be able to overcome this crisis. Chapter 326 Turbulence strikes again in the central region. Top-tier assassins from the Luo Wang network make their move. The other elders also showed a helpless expression at this time, and within this helplessness, their faces were more filled with desolation and unwillingness. They naturally guessed the purpose of the Blood Rain Tower at this time, but if they truly lost this time, then the entire Cloud Dragon sect would be completely annihilated. Now we have no choice. If we lose, I will become the sinner of the entire Cloud Dragon sect, so we cannot lose. The sect master of the Cloud Dragon sect looked at the elders before him with a helpless expression and spoke. At this moment, he naturally understood the elders' meaning. Therefore, the sect master of the Cloud Dragon sect was very firm at this moment. If this great battle truly ended with the Blood Rain Tower's defeat, then their Cloud Dragon sect would also cease to exist with the failure of this great battle. But if the Blood Rain Tower won this great battle, the Cloud Dragon sect would successfully become the victor of this battle. However, no matter what, the final outcome of this great battle did not depend on their Cloud Dragon sect, but on the great battle between the Blood Rain Tower and the underworld. After hearing their sect master's words, the other elders also showed a hint of sadness on their faces. This was the gap between their small forces and the top forces. If their strength were greater, how could such a thing happen? Now most of the elders hated themselves for not being strong enough. However, none of this was something they could change. At this time, due to the Blood Rain Tower, the news that the underworld assassins were about to assassinate a Saint entry-level elder of the Cloud Dragon sect quickly spread throughout the entire central region. The already bustling central region became even livelier upon hearing this news. After all, the underworld had only recently appeared, and now there was such news again. These people were naturally very much looking forward to the appearance of the underworld at this time, and also wanted to see the true strength of the underworld. In just a few days, this news completely spread throughout the entire central region, and even the top forces received this news. However, these top forces had no intention of interfering at this time. Instead, they also wanted to see how powerful the underworld truly was. It seems there's involvement from the Blood Rain Tower here. Otherwise, the news of the underworld assassination wouldn't have spread so quickly. It seems this contest is between the Blood Rain Tower and the underworld. The alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance naturally received this news, but the moment he received it, he understood the main source of this matter. Thus, the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance looked at the direction of the Blood Rain Tower with a mischievous smile. At this moment, he naturally knew that the entire origin of this matter was the Blood Rain Tower. At the same time, this alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance also wanted to see how the struggle between the underworld and the Blood Rain Tower would unfold. I didn't expect the Blood Rain Tower to be so impatient. In just a few days, they've already started a conflict with the underworld. I just don't know if the underworld can withstand the attacks from the Blood Rain Tower's experts. The Holy Lord of the Tianxian Holy Land naturally guessed it was the Blood Rain Tower the moment he heard this news. He looked at the direction of the Blood Rain Tower with a playful glint in his eyes. Although the Blood Rain Tower was an assassin organization, they were stationed in a top city in the central region. It could be said that all these forces in the central region knew of the Blood Rain Tower's existence, and even knew its location, but the Blood Rain Tower's strength made them stand in awe. Once, a great saint-level expert, whose family members were assassinated by the Blood Rain Tower, directly went to the Blood Rain Tower to seek revenge. However, this great saint-level expert was killed by the Blood Rain Tower's experts the moment he stepped near the Blood Rain Tower. This was also why the Blood Rain Tower dared to appear so openly in front of everyone. It could be said that everyone clearly saw the Blood Rain Tower's strength. They all understood that the Blood Rain Tower's strength might not be weaker than that of top forces. However, apart from these top forces, the cultivators in the central region at this time all began to turn their gaze towards the Cloud Dragon sect. At the same time, some cultivators were even directly rushing towards the Cloud Dragon sect. They wanted to see how powerful the cultivators of the underworld truly were, and also wanted to see how long it would take the underworld to deal with this elder of the Cloud Dragon sect this time. I didn't expect the underworld's first move to cause such a stir. It seems we should go and see how powerful the underworld assassins truly are. If he is really that powerful, then the person I want to assassinate can also be handled by the underworld. Yes, if the underworld is truly that powerful, then what we'll face next are two top assassin organizations. If the underworld is really that powerful, how could they possibly care about loose cultivators like you? After all, both the underworld and the Blood Rain Tower only carry out assassinations when someone issues an assassination mission. Are loose cultivators like us worth someone issuing an assassination mission for? This brother is right. If the underworld's strength is truly great, then those who need to worry are not us loose cultivators, but rather the young masters of aristocratic families and the prodigies among the experts of top forces. I'm really curious how powerful the underworld is. A group of loose cultivators at this time also began discussing the underworld. At this moment, they wanted to know how powerful the underworld truly was, and at the same time, more schadenfreude appeared on their faces. After all, with the appearance of the underworld assassin organization, the good fortune of those aristocratic young masters would come to an end. After all, those aristocratic young masters were so stubborn, it was only natural that someone would gather spirit stones to assassinate them. Moreover, the top prodigies of those sects would also face assassination from the underworld. After all, it was quite normal for two major forces to want to assassinate each other's prodigies. Previously, there was only one Blood Rain Tower, and they could naturally deal with it easily. But now with the addition of another place, they would find it very difficult to cope. The enemy hidden in the dark is always the most dangerous. Just as the cultivators of the central region were all curious whether the underworld could resolve the physical body level elder of the Cloud Dragon sect. At this time, the assassins on the underworld side also began to act. The one dispatched this time to assassinate the Cloud Dragon sect elder was Luo Wang Assassin Black and White Mysterious Sword, a heaven-grade first-class assassin. Due to the previous improvement, his strength had now reached the late Saint realm. However, he could also assassinate cultivators in the perfected Saint realm. And this time, not only the heaven-grade first-class Assassin Black and White Mysterious Sword went to the Cloud Dragon sect, but also the 6 sword slaves, whose cultivation realm also reached the entering Saint realm. Among the 6 sword slaves, Zhang Gang, with the highest cultivation, had already reached the late Saint realm, while the lowest cultivation among them had also reached the Saint entry mid-stage. The 6 of them working together could even kill an early-stage Saint King expert. Chapter 327, The Terrifying Black and White Scissors, Slaying the Cloud Dragon Sect Elder. An unexpected event occurs. Naturally, this time, it wasn't just the net of Luo's assassins who departed. There were also other Saint entry-level top experts who had arrived in the central region. However, they did not travel to the Cloud Dragon sect with a net of Luo's top assassins. Instead, they hid in the shadows alongside Li Chungang, only choosing to make their move when the true experts of the Blood Rain Tower showed up. Just as everyone was rushing towards the Cloud Dragon sect, Black and White Mysterious Sword and the 6 sword slaves quickly appeared outside the Cloud Dragon sect. The primary person responsible for assassinating the Cloud Dragon sect's elder this time was Black and White Mysterious Sword. So the 6 sword slaves began to conceal themselves upon arriving at the Cloud Dragon sect, while also starting to observe everything within the Cloud Dragon sect. Although the Cloud Dragon sect was extremely cautious at this moment, it was still remarkably easy for them to infiltrate the Cloud Dragon sect. In merely a few breaths of time, Black and White Mysterious Sword appeared at the residence of the Cloud Dragon sect's elder. Although their underworld had only recently emerged in the central region, many of the assassin members within the underworld were former Luo Wang assassins, making it quite easy for them to find the residence of the Cloud Dragon sect's elder. This was precisely why Black and White Mysterious Sword appeared outside the elder's residence with such ease. The moment Black and White Mysterious Sword arrived outside the elder's residence, he sensed the few Saint entry-level cultivators who were concealed nearby. Do they truly believe they can rely on just a few Saint entry-level cultivators to resist me? When Black and White Mysterious Sword sensed these auras, a sneer of disdain curved his lips, and he quickly disappeared into the darkness. When he reappeared, he was already inside the elder's room. The elder was currently meditating, but one could sense that his divine sense was continuously scrutinizing the surrounding environment. Evidently, the elder was highly cautious at this moment. But even if he was this cautious, how could he possibly withstand Black and White Mysterious Sword's attack? Black and White Mysterious Sword slowly materialized beside him. He carried no trace of aura, appearing next to the elder as silently as a falling leaf. The elder instantly opened his eyes the moment Black and White Mysterious Sword appeared beside him, and the next second he saw Black and White Mysterious Sword standing directly in front of him. Immediately, a look of utter disbelief appeared in his eyes. Just as he was about to open his mouth to speak, a thread of blood appeared at his throat, and he collapsed, his face frozen in shock. Having completed this, Black and White Mysterious Sword tossed a symbol bearing the underworld's mark onto the elder's body. After finishing the deed, Black and White Mysterious Sword vanished into the night once more. It was as if he had never appeared, leaving only the lifeless elder in the room, his eyes still wide with terror. Just as Black and White Mysterious Sword departed, the Saint entry-level cultivators outside immediately sensed that something was amiss. The few of them swiftly opened their eyes, rushed toward the room, and quickly entered it. The scene that greeted them left the group completely dumbfounded. They saw the elder lying on the ground, his eyes wide with horror and incredulity. They could simultaneously see that the thread of blood at his throat was still steadily seeping fresh blood. Furthermore, the underworld's emblem was extremely conspicuous. It's a top expert in assassination, and this particular expert uses a sword. We never imagined the underworld possessed such a powerful and terrifying existence. A late Saint Realm expert observed the scene, speaking with deep solemnity in his eyes. At that moment, he naturally sensed the aura of despair that accompanied the elder's demise. For this underworld expert to eliminate the elder without anyone knowing meant that the strength of this underworld expert far surpassed their wildest imagination. Seal the mountain gates. This underworld expert should not have gone far yet. Following this, the Cloud Dragon sect's sect master stepped forward and spoke slowly. However, an indelible look of fury was visible on his face, making it clear just how enraged the Cloud Dragon sect's sect master currently was. As soon as the Cloud Dragon sect's sect master issued the order, the entire Cloud Dragon sect became a hive of activity, and the Cloud Dragon sect's protective mountain formation was instantly activated. Black and White Mysterious Sword, who had originally intended to leave the Cloud Dragon sect, also sensed the formation above his head. I didn't expect this small Cloud Dragon sect to actually possess a formation. But since you are courting death, then I shall eliminate the entire Cloud Dragon sect today. Black and White Mysterious Sword halted his steps. Without the slightest hesitation, he appeared directly above the Cloud Dragon sect in the sky. The Cloud Dragon sect's sect master, who is currently searching for Black and White Mysterious Sword's location, naturally spotted Black and White Mysterious Sword in the sky immediately. I didn't expect this underworld assassin to be so brazen, exposing himself so easily within our line of sight. The Cloud Dragon sect's sect master then raised his head, looking at Black and White Mysterious Sword in the sky as he spoke slowly, appearing even more enraged now. After all, The Cloud Dragon sect master was an expert in his own right, and he had not expected the underworld assassin to regard their Cloud Dragon sect with such disdain. I originally intended to spare your lives, but since you are determined to court death, then this venerable one shall fulfill your desire. Black and white mysterious sword. Naturally, he saw the Cloud Dragon sect master below. He slowly took one step forward, arriving directly above the Cloud Dragon sect master, looking down at him with an amused gaze. His voice, without any concealment, spread directly throughout the entire Cloud Dragon sect. The Cloud Dragon sect's elders and disciples, who were already anxious, all turned their gazes toward the direction the voice came from. They then saw the terrifying figure of black and white mysterious sword standing in the sky, and simultaneously, a sense of unease rose in their hearts. Relying solely on your excellency, I doubt you will even be able to walk out of my Cloud Dragon sect. When a Cloud Dragon sect master saw black and white mysterious sword, he sensed black and white mysterious sword's late saint realm cultivation base. Thus, the solemnity in his eyes began to ease, and he spoke to black and white mysterious sword with a grim and terrifying expression. The few saint entry-level cultivators beside him also released their auras, staring furiously at black and white mysterious sword before them. As saint entry-level grand elders of the Cloud Dragon sect, they naturally had not expected black and white mysterious sword to slay their elder so easily. Chapter 328. The Yunlong sect unleashes its full strength. The great battle begins. At first, they thought the killer from the underworld who had slain their elder had already reached the perfected saint realm, but they never expected that the underworld killer who slew their elder was merely late saint realm. Although the perfected saint realm and the late saint realm are only separated by one minor realm, the gap between the two is vast. A cultivator in the perfected saint realm can fight dozens of late saint realm cultivators, but this only applies to ordinary cultivators. A top expert like black and white mysterious sword can fight above his level. If his cultivation reached the perfected saint realm, perhaps he could even fight an early-stage Saint King expert. Do you truly think you can fight me? Aren't you underestimating my underworld too much? Black and white mysterious sword looked disdainfully at the several grand elders and the sect master of the Cloud Dragon sect before him. Although 3 of these Cloud Dragon sect grand elders had already entered the late saint realm, the other 2, plus the Cloud Dragon sect master, were merely saint entry mid-stage. Yet, facing black and white mysterious sword, they were still unable to truly fight him. After all, black and white mysterious sword was a figure who had fought the 2 semi-protagonists in Qin's Moon, and he had even defeated those 2 semi-protagonists in the early stages. Do you think my Cloud Dragon sect will let you escape this time? Upon hearing black and white mysterious sword's words, the Cloud Dragon sect master smiled. Although he did not know where black and white mysterious sword's immense confidence came from, the Cloud Dragon sect had prepared for this moment for a long time. They refused to believe that a mere late saint realm killer like black and white mysterious sword could escape from them, especially since the Cloud Dragon sect's saint entry-level cultivators were not limited to just them. As the Cloud Dragon sect master's voice fell, streaks of light flashed across the horizon. Quickly, dozens of figures stopped beside the Cloud Dragon sect master. The chi of these cultivators had all reached the entering saint realm, and the cultivation of the elder standing at the very front had even reached the perfected saint realm. At this moment, the elder glared angrily at black and white mysterious sword before him. He released the chi belonging to the perfected saint realm without holding back in the slightest. As for the other saint entry-level cultivators, they all looked seriously at black and white mysterious sword. By now, they naturally knew that black and white mysterious sword had assassinated their sect's elder. I didn't expect a mere Cloud Dragon sect to actually possess so many saint entry-level cultivators. But even so, what can you do to this venerable one? Black and white mysterious sword also hadn't expected the Cloud Dragon sect to be able to produce so many saint entry-level cultivators. However, at this moment, there was no hint of worry on his face. Instead, he calmly looked at the Yunlong sect ancestor before him. Time to work, 6 sword slaves. Then, black and white mysterious sword lightly clapped his hands and spoke toward the sky. His voice, like a streak of light in the darkness, spread into the ears of everyone present. As black and white mysterious sword's voice fell, 6 figures appeared before him. The chi radiating from these figures had all reached the entering saint realm, and even the lowest among them had a cultivation reaching saint entry mid-stage. I will handle this old fellow. As for the others, the 6 of you resolve them. Looking at the 6 sword slaves beside him, black and white mysterious sword slowly drew the black longsword from his waist, speaking as he pointed at the Yunlong sect ancestor. Then black and white mysterious sword, longsword in hand, charged toward the Yunlong sect ancestor. Although his cultivation was only late Saint realm, the chi radiating from him at that moment had already far surpassed the late Saint realm. How dare he? The Yunlong sect ancestor hadn't expected black and white mysterious sword to dare treat him with such contempt. He roared in fury and immediately charged toward black and white mysterious sword. His palm carried terrifying and domineering chi. This chi instantly appeared beside black and white mysterious sword, and he immediately struck out a palm toward black and white mysterious sword. How could black and white mysterious sword possibly fear the Yunlong sect ancestor before him? The black longsword in his hand instantly appeared in front of the Yunlong sect ancestor. The black longsword in his hand then blocked the Yunlong sect ancestor's palm strike. The strength of the two clashed against each other. The Yunlong sect ancestor also hadn't expected black and white mysterious sword to block his palm strike so easily. Thus, when he looked at black and white mysterious sword again, the contempt in his eyes slowly began to dissipate. But just at this moment, a white light suddenly flashed on black and white mysterious sword's side. In the next second, he drew the long sword from his waist with his left hand, and this white long sword immediately stabbed toward the Yunlong sect ancestor. The terrifying power instantly caused the Yunlong sect ancestor to almost fail to react. The Yunlong sect ancestor quickly retreated backward, but clearly he no longer had the speed needed to fully retreat. Black and white mysterious sword's white longsword directly pierced the Yunlong sect ancestor's arm. Simultaneously, as the white longsword pierced the Yunlong sect ancestor's arm, his black longsword also began to strike toward the Yunlong sect ancestor. The Yunlong sect ancestor clearly hadn't anticipated this scene. A terrifying pressure instantly radiated from him, and a flood dragon immediately coiled up beside him, completely enveloping him. This flood dragon coiling around the Yunlong sect ancestor also blocked the black longsword for the Yunlong sect ancestor. This allowed the Yunlong sect ancestor to catch his breath, but when he looked at black and white mysterious sword again, his eyes were filled with horror. He hadn't expected the strength of this underworld killer, whose cultivation was one minor realm lower than his own, to be so terrifying. At the same time, the blood flowing from his shoulder reminded him not to underestimate the underworld killer before him. Everything that happened in this short period was naturally witnessed by the other members of the Cloud Dragon sect and the Six Sword Slaves. The Cloud Dragon sect sect master and the Cloud Dragon sect grand elders were all looking toward black and white mysterious sword and their old ancestor with looks of disbelief. They hadn't expected their old ancestor to be injured so easily, and by a killer who was merely late Saint realm. Besides disbelief, their eyes were filled with solemnity. However, the Six Sword Slaves clearly wouldn't give them chance. The Six Sword Slaves instantly transformed into 6 streaks of light, charging toward the Cloud Dragon sect's Saint entry-level cultivators before them. They targeted the Cloud Dragon sect cultivators who had just entered the entering Saint realm. In just one exchange, they slaughtered several Cloud Dragon sect Saint entry-level cultivators. Chapter 329, Distinguishing the Blood Rain Tower Assassins levels, and the regretful ancestor of the Cloud Dragon sect. Their speed was so fast that the Cloud Dragon sect's sect master and the Grand Elders couldn't even react, resulting in the deaths of several initial Saint Realm cultivators from their sect. Why are the killers from Hell so fast? Damn it! If this continues, the foundation of my Cloud Dragon sect will be greatly diminished. The Cloud Dragon sect's sect master saw this scene, his eyes filled with rage. He immediately charged furiously toward one of the 6 sword slaves. Of course, the 6 sword slave the Cloud Dragon sect's sect master faced was only at the Saint entry mid-stage. At this moment, the Cloud Dragon sect's Grand Elders naturally couldn't hold back and attacked directly. 3 of the Grand Elders had already reached the late Saint realm, so they naturally targeted the 3 killers among the 6 sword slaves who had also reached the late Saint realm. As for the remaining 2 6 sword slaves, both Saint entry mid-stage killers, they faced the other Saint entry-level elders of the Cloud Dragon sect. And so, this great battle began. Although Hell only had the 6 sword slaves, these 6 Saint entry-level killers, they still appear to be handling the dozens of Saint realm cultivators from the Cloud Dragon sect with ease. As for black and white mysterious sword on the other side, he continuously used the black and white long swords in his hands to wear down the Yunlong sect ancestor. At the same time, streaks of sword chi continuously struck toward the Yunlong sect ancestor. The terrifying sword chi seemed to even tear through the pitch-black night sky. The Yunlong sect ancestor continuously used his movement technique to evade while simultaneously launching his moves toward black and white mysterious sword. A huge crater quickly appeared where the two fought, and the crater was mixed with palm force and sword intent. As for the other cultivators of the Cloud Dragon sect, they watched the direction of the battlefield with worried eyes. At this time, the mountain peak where the Cloud Dragon sect elder resided was completely destroyed due to this great battle. The other cultivators, who were only at the True King or True King realm, looked at the destroyed mountain peak with worry in their eyes. They naturally knew that the targets of their elder and old ancestor in this battle were the killers from hell, so they placed all their hope on their sect master, old ancestor, and grand elders. Concurrently, a dozen killers wearing blood-red robes stood inside the main hall of the Cloud Dragon sect. The chi radiating from them had all reached the entering saint realm, and their gazes were fixed intently on the battle below. The chi emanating from the leading killer, who wore a blood-red robe, even surpassed that of the Cloud Dragon sect's old ancestor. Clearly, his cultivation was no longer in the entering saint realm. So, these are the killers from hell? Even within my Blood Rain Tower, the strength of these killers is quite good. It's just a pity that they provoked my Blood Rain Tower. The Blood Rain Tower killer, radiating a terrifying aura, slowly spoke while watching the battle below. However, he was somewhat surprised when he sensed the chi of black and white mysterious sword and the 6 sword slaves. He had not expected the killers from hell to possess such formidable concealment methods, and these killers from hell were considered invincible existences within the same realm. If black and white mysterious sword and the 6 sword slaves were not killers from hell, he might have chosen to recruit them into the Blood Rain Tower. It was a pity that black and white mysterious sword and the 6 sword slaves were both killers from hell. They were mortal enemies from the start. Let these ants from the Cloud Dragon sect wear down these few killers from hell a bit more before we make our move. He then calmly spoke to the Blood Rain Tower killers beside him. After speaking, he closed his eyes to rest his spirit. Clearly, he was completely confident that he could deal with the killers from hell. Meanwhile, the eyes of the Blood Rain Tower killers were filled with killing intent as they watched the battlefield. The killers dispatched by the Blood Rain Tower this time were these dozen or so red-robed killers in the main hall. Specks of dried blood could be seen on their red robes, indicating that these robes had been stained with blood before. Aside from the leading Blood Rain Tower killer, the red robes of the other Blood Rain Tower killers were embroidered with a silver bird, making them appear more vivid. The leading Blood Rain Tower killer had a golden bird embroidered on his body. This signified a Blood Rain Tower golden killer. The rank of a Blood Rain Tower killer was determined by the color of the embroidered bird on their body. A silver bird represented a Blood Rain Tower silver killer, below which were bronze killers and rankless killers. Above the golden killer was the top-tier ace killer, but a Blood Rain Tower ace killer had not appeared for decades. After all, the cost of assassinating a great saint-level expert was not something everyone could afford. The Blood Rain Tower had only successfully assassinated one great saint-level expert in the past century. Just as these Blood Rain Tower killers were waiting for the battle below to conclude, the 6 sword slaves had completely adapted to the environment here. Thus, they began slaughtering the elders of the Cloud Dragon sect facing them. The first to fall were the initial Saint Realm elders of the Cloud Dragon sect. They were slain by the 6 sword slaves before they even had a chance to react, and the Saint Entry mid-stage elders and grand elders of the Cloud Dragon sect also began to slowly perish. Even the Cloud Dragon sect's sect master fell unwillingly. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the Cloud Dragon sect had lost over a dozen Saint Entry-level experts. Even if the Cloud Dragon sect were the final victor of this great battle, the resources they had consumed this time were unimaginable. Without 1,000 years, the hell they had expended could not be recovered. The Yunlong sect ancestor was now starting to be suppressed. Black and white mysterious sword, who was facing him, continuously struck toward him with his black and white long swords. This forced the Yunlong sect ancestor to constantly use his secret technique to summon dragon illusory projections to resist the attacks. However, it could be seen that the dragon illusory projection beside the Yunlong sect ancestor was growing dimmer and dimmer, as if it might be instantly annihilated by black and white mysterious swords' offense at any moment. The Yunlong sect ancestor naturally saw the battlefield on the other side. He had not expected this great battle to turn into a slaughter of the Cloud Dragon sect by the killers from hell. Their strength was clearly superior to that of the killers from hell, yet the tide of the battle was turning in a direction they had never anticipated. At this moment, the Yunlong sect ancestor already began to regret fighting hell to the bitter end. Chapter 330 Blood Rain Tower Assassins appear. Sword Saint Feng Qingyang makes his debut. At this moment, black and white mysterious sword had clearly played enough, so he merged the black and white long swords in his hand. Then, black and white mysterious sword, wielding the sword with both hands, fiercely struck down towards this Yunlong sect ancestor. The next second, a black and white sword glow directly shot towards this Yunlong sect ancestor. Feeling the crisis of impending death, this Yunlong sect ancestor quickly retreated, but how could his speed compare to black and white mysterious sword's terrifying attack? So, the next second, a heaven-shaking sword glow composed of black and white sword energy slashed towards this Yunlong sect ancestor's body. Just as this black and white sword glow was about to land on this Yunlong sect ancestor, a blood-red light appeared in front of this Yunlong sect ancestor. At the same time, a mysterious person wearing a blood-red robe appeared in front of this Yunlong sect ancestor. The aura emanating from this mysterious person in a blood-red robe had already reached the early stage Saint King realm, so he easily blocked black and white mysterious sword strike. As soon as this mysterious person in a blood-red robe appeared, more than 10 mysterious people in blood-red robes instantly appeared on the battlefield. The auras emanating from them had all reached the entering Saint realm. At the same time, the auras of these people contained killing intent. Although their realms were similar to those of Cloud Dragon Sect's Elder and Grand Elder, their auras far surpassed those of Cloud Dragon Sect's Elder. Black and white mysterious sword showed no surprise at this scene. Instead, he looked at this mysterious person in a blood-red robe in front of him with some astonishment. I thought you rats hiding in the dark wouldn't dare to come out. I didn't expect you rats to plan to come out when we were both injured. But your plans are about to be shattered. Looking at this mysterious person in a blood-red robe, an early stage Saint King, in front of him, black and white mysterious sword naturally recognized his identity. So he scoffed at this mysterious person in a blood-red robe. After speaking, he slowly moved to Six Sword Slave's side. At this time, Six Sword Slaves had also stopped attacking the Cloud Dragon Sect's Elder in front of them due to the appearance of these assassins from Blood Rain Tower. After all, they were now at a disadvantage, so it was naturally impossible for them to launch another attack on these Elder. Although these ants didn't injure you, do you think a few of you can escape the slaughter of our Blood Rain Tower? Although this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin showed a hint of anger after hearing black and white mysterious sword's words, he still looked at black and white mysterious sword in front of him with disdain. Our underworld already knew that Blood Rain Tower's assassins would appear. So do you think our underworld would be unprepared? Black and white mysterious sword looked at this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin in front of him with the gaze of an idiot. After speaking, a hint of pity appeared in his eyes. At this time, he could naturally feel that this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin's cultivation was only at the early stage Saint King realm, so he didn't even have the qualifications to make the sword god of their underworld take action. Moreover, the ones who came to Cloud Dragon Sect from their underworld this time were not just this sword god. This Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin, who originally had a look of disdain on his face, instantly showed a solemn expression after hearing black and white mysterious sword's words. If it was really as the assassin from the underworld in front of them said, then this time they would probably face more powerful assassins from the underworld. And this Yunlong sect ancestor, who had originally shown a look of triumph after being saved by this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin, also instantly showed a look of horror after hearing black and white mysterious sword's words. The other Blood Rain Tower assassins were also staring intently at black and white mysterious sword's direction. At this moment, 6 figures stood high in the sky above Cloud Dragon Sect. One of these 6 was sword god Li Chungang. Looking at the Blood Rain Tower assassins below, Li Chungang also showed a look of disdain. How boring. I didn't expect Blood Rain Tower to only send an early stage Saint King realm assassin this time. It seems they really don't take my underworld seriously. Little Qingyang, you go. Then, Li Chungang spoke to the old man with a long sword beside him. Qingyang understands. And this old man showed no surprise after hearing Li Chunggang's words. Instead, he respectfully cupped his hands to Li Chungang. Although he was called Sword Saint, he had no heirs in front of Li Chungang. After all, Li Chunggang's cultivation had long surpassed his. After speaking, he led the 4 people beside him and flew towards Cloud Dragon Sect's battlefield. Then, their figures quickly appeared beside black and white mysterious sword. Feng Xingyang looked calmly at this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin in front of him. At the same time, his aura of the perfected saint realm completely erupted, and this perfected saint realm aura had reached its peak. It was clear that he would soon break through to the Saint King realm. Feng Xingyang's talent was originally very strong, and during this period, he had always followed Dugu Qiubai. Under Dugu Qiubai's guidance, his cultivation also began to improve rapidly. Of course, the most important thing was that under Dugu Qiubai's guidance, Feng Xingyang's 9 swords of Dugu became even more powerful. Now, it was still very easy for him to kill an early-stage Saint King realm cultivator across realms. As for the 4 beside him, they were Dong Xie, Shidu, Nindi, and Bei Gai. They had been summoned, but had never had a chance to act, and this time, Chu Fan had directly sent them to the central region to be assassins in the underworld. Moreover, their cultivation had all reached the perfected saint realm. Although their combat power was not as good as Wang Chongyang's, they still had the strength to fight against ordinary early-stage Saint King Realm Cultivator. What's more, this time they were not facing Saint King Realm Cultivator, but these Saint entry-level Blood Rain Tower assassins. You Underworld really looks down on this venerable one. You actually only plan to send 5 perfected Saint Realm Cultivator to resist this venerable one. It's simply wishful thinking. The worry on this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin's face instantly disappeared when he felt the auras emanating from Feng Qingyang and the others who appeared in front of him. Then, he looked at Feng Qingyang and the others with disdain. You're mistaken. We don't plan for 5 of us to attack you together. Instead, I intend to kill you alone. After hearing this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin's words, Feng Qingyang slowly stepped out and shook his head. Then, the terrifying sword intent on his body directly erupted, and the terrifying aura on his body instantly swept across the entire battlefield. At this moment, he stood between heaven and earth like a precious sword. Chapter 331 The Great Battle continues. The Blood Rain Tower, Silver Rank Assassin, is tortured and killed. Although Feng Qingyang's cultivation is currently only at the perfected Saint realm, he still has a chance of victory against an early-stage Saint King cultivator. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the training he received from Sword Demon Dugu Qiubai? This Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin was stunned after hearing Feng Qingyang's words. He had originally thought he would face 5 perfected Saint Realm assassins from the Underworld today, but he never expected that the Underworld would send only 1 Saint entry-level assassin to fight him, which instantly angered this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin. The Underworld's actions were tantamount to looking down on him. You alone think you can kill me? The Underworld really looks down on my Blood Rain Tower. Then, this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin glared angrily at Feng Qingyang. At the same time, a terrifying killing intent instantly emanated from him. The terrifying killing intent instantly permeated the entire Cloud Dragon sect, making the whole Cloud Dragon sect feel as if it were in a massacre. Feng Qingyang frowned upon sensing this murderous aura. Then he lightly drew his finger across the air. The next second, a silver-white sword chi instantly tore through this terrifying murderous domain. Feng Qingyang stood between heaven and earth, like a majestic long sword, towering over the Cloud Dragon sect. The murderous auras in front of him retreated upon sensing this terrifying sword intent. At this moment, these murderous auras seemed to have met their monarch, beginning to tremble. This Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin's face showed a look of shock upon seeing this. One must know that even an early-stage Saint King cultivator would find it difficult to break his murderous domain. Yet it was now broken by a perfected Saint Realm cultivator, a situation that had never occurred before. However, he quickly moved his finger slightly, and a terrifying aura instantly emanated from this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin. The next second, he instantly vanished from his original spot, reappearing in front of Feng Qingyang. At the same time, his terrifying attack stabbed towards Feng Qingyang's heart. This was the deterrent power of a gold medal assassin. When they don't act, they don't, but when they do, they strike at the enemy's vital points. But how could Feng Qingyang let him succeed? He instantly transformed into a silver-white sword light and vanished from his original spot. When he reappeared, he was thousands of feet up in the sky. At this moment, Feng Qingyang looked down at this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin below, a hint of playfulness in his eyes. Then, a silver-white long sword appeared in Feng Qingyang's hand. The next second, he wielded the long sword and charged towards this gold medal assassin. The terrifying power instantly tore through the surrounding murderous auras. At the same time, a silver-white light could be seen cutting across the dark night sky. This silver-white light was the sword glow unleashed by Feng Qingyang. This Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin also quickly transformed into a streak of light upon seeing this. And at the same time, a large saber appeared in his hand. A terrifying saber intent emanated from the large saber. Carrying this soaring saber intent, this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin transformed into a blood-red light and charged towards Feng Qingyang. Thus, a blood-red light and a silver-white light appeared in the sky, clashing against each other. These two lights were like two meteors colliding. In just a breath, the two lights collided. The moment of impact, a violent explosion occurred in the sky above the entire Cloud Dragon sect. Then, the surrounding dark space seemed to be illuminated by the collision of these two lights. As for Feng Qingyang and this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin, they both retreated in this collision. After retreating, the two attacked each other again. Terrifying sword intent and saber intent filled the entire sky, and at the same time, the two forces continuously tore apart the rules in the sky. The battle between the two had already affected the entire Cloud Dragon sect. At this time, the disciples and the weaker elders and deacons of the Cloud Dragon sect were rolling on the ground in pain. and those weaker disciples even fell under the pressure of this terrifying aura, apparently unable to withstand these terrifying sword intent and saber intent. In just a few breaths, the clashes between Feng Qingyang and this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin had already reached dozens of times. And below, thousands of disciples and deacons of the Cloud Dragon sect had also perished. While Feng Qingyang and this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin were battling Dongxie, Shidu, and others also began to attack the Blood Rain Tower's Silver Medal assassins. Their cultivation had already reached the perfected Saint realm, so facing these Blood Rain Tower assassins was quite easy for them. Moreover, they were originally the cream of the crop in their world, so resolving these Blood Rain Tower Silver Medal assassins was very easy. Thus, a massacre began below. The Cloud Dragon sect's Saint entry-level cultivators were originally no match for Black and White Mysterious Sword and others, although they now had the Blood Rain Tower's Silver Medal assassins joining them. The Underworld side had added 4 more perfected Saint realm powerhouses, so their situation was even more difficult than before. The Grand Elders of the Cloud Dragon sect all had pale faces at this moment. They had not expected such an outcome. They had originally thought that with the Blood Rain Tower's help, they could withstand the Underworld's attack, but they never expected the Underworld's strength to be so formidable. Unfortunately, they had no chance to regret now. What awaited them were the powerful assassins of the Underworld. The cooperation of the 6 sword slaves was also perfect. They continuously reaped the lives of the cultivators from the Blood Rain Tower and the Cloud Dragon sect. As for the 4 greats, they continuously unleashed their ultimate moves. Ouyang Feng's Toad skill, though not very aesthetically pleasing, appeared incredibly powerful at this moment. In just a short while, he had killed several Saint entry-level assassins. Although Great Master Yideng did not kill at this time, several of the Blood Rain Tower assassins in front of him had been crippled by him, and their lives were then taken by the 6 sword slaves who seized the opportunity. As for Huang Yaoshi, he was even more ferocious. His jade flute played continuously, instantly causing the Blood Rain Tower assassins in front of him to roll on the ground. Hong Qigong also continuously unleashed his 18 dragon subduing palms. Golden giant dragons appeared one after another, annihilating these Blood Rain Tower assassins. At this moment, the 18 dragons subduing palms truly achieved materialization. If it were the 18 dragons subduing palms in a wuxia novel, what would be unleashed would probably only be true qi. But now, the 18 dragons subduing palms unleashed by Hong Qigong were real golden dragons, whose strength was in no way inferior to that of the Dragon Clan at the same realm. Chapter 332, A Terrifying Battle. The mysterious master of Blood Rain Tower reappears. As for the remaining Saint entry-level cultivators of the Cloud Dragon sect, they were even more vulnerable. They had no chance to resist against Black and White Mysterious Sword and the others. As the battle continued, in less than an incense stick's time, the Blood Rain Tower's assassins and the Cloud Dragon sect's Saint entry-level cultivators were all slaughtered by the Underworld. It can be said that now, the only Saint entry-level cultivators standing in the Cloud Dragon sect are those from the Underworld. Meanwhile, Feng Qingyang in the sky was still locked in battle with this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin. At this moment, Feng Qingyang's aura became increasingly terrifying, while this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin found it increasingly difficult to fight against Feng Qingyang. After all, facing a Feng Qingyang who had just entered the perfected Saint realm, he already found it hard to win, let alone now that Feng Qingyang was about to enter the Saint King realm. This Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin now felt that Feng Qingyang's strength was growing stronger and stronger, to the point where he found it difficult to even defend himself. So he looked at Feng Qingyang with a hint of panic in his eyes. Feng Qingyang, however, ignored this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin in front of him, who was filled with panic. Instead, he transformed into a streak of light, directly cutting through the night sky and appearing above this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin's head. At the same time, the spiritual qi between heaven and earth continuously gathered around Feng Qingyang. The next second, long swords formed from the spiritual qi between heaven and earth appeared around Feng Qingyang. Instantly, Feng Qingyang seemed to be enveloped by thousands of long swords, and the aura emanating from him made even the surrounding space laws tremble. This Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin below naturally noticed this scene, so he looked at Feng Qingyang in the sky with horror in his eyes. Watching Feng Qingyang, accompanied by thousands of long swords, charging towards him, this Blood Rain Tower Gold Medal assassin finally showed a look of disbelief on his face. However, he quickly reacted and immediately crushed a jade token in his embrace. After crushing this jade token, this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin instantly appeared hundreds of miles behind Feng Qingyang, as if there was no trace of his aura in the entire sky. And Feng Qingyang's thousands of longswords also missed their target. But how could Feng Qingyang give up on this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin now? He instantly merged with the thousands of longswords around him, and the next second, his entire being transformed into a heaven-shattering greatsword, striking towards this Blood Rain Tower assassin. His speed seemed to have surpassed the speed of light. A silver-white light streaked across the sky. In the blink of an eye, Feng Qingyang had already appeared before this Blood Rain Tower assassin. At the same time, the longsword had transformed into also directly struck towards this Blood Rain Tower assassin, and the terrifying power instantly tore through the surrounding space. This Blood Rain Tower assassin, seeing this scene, also endured the pressure and slashed out with his saber towards Feng Qingyang. The next second, a blood-red saber light emanated from this Blood Rain Tower assassin. At the same time, the full moon in the sky also seemed to turn blood-red. Clearly, this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin had now unleashed his true, strongest attack. The terrifying blood-red saber light slashed towards this heaven-shattering greatsword. The next second, this blood-red saber light, like a full moon, collided with this heaven-shattering greatsword. At the moment of impact, the mountains below them also could not withstand this power and began to collapse one after another. At the same time, the huge rocks on the mountains also flew in all directions like cannonballs. As for the Yao beasts below, they were not so lucky. Yao beasts above the king level all flew to other places at this moment. As for the Yao beasts below the king level, they were continuously crushed to death by these falling stones. These Yao beasts were probably the most innocent and tragic victims of this incident. After this collision between Feng Qingyang and this Blood Rain Tower assassin, both figures fell onto a mountain peak. At the same time, the longsword Feng Qingyang had transformed into also directly pierced into this mountain peak. The next second, Feng Qingyang's figure slowly appeared on this mountain peak. It could be seen that this mountain peak was completely split in half due to Feng Qingyang's fall, and in the gully of the mountain, the terrifying sword intent could still be felt. As for Feng Qingyang, he stood like a true sword saint on the top of the mountain, looking at the scene of rising dust on the other mountain peak. And in the midst of the rising dust on the other mountain peak, this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin now looked in Feng Qingyang's direction with an unwilling expression. At this moment, his blood-red long robe was already stained with blood, and upon closer inspection, it could be seen that this blood was from this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin himself. Such a situation was rare for Blood Rain Tower assassins. In the past, the blood on their clothes was always the enemy's blood, but this time he was covered in his own blood. At the same time, many sword marks could be seen on this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin's body. Clearly, the successive sword intents emanating from Feng Qingyang's greatsword had already landed on this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin. Additionally, a huge deep pit appeared at this Blood Rain Tower assassin's feet, and this deep pit instantly caused the mountain peak he was on to sink several hundred feet. At the same time, he stood on this mountain peak, appearing somewhat aloof. Damn it, I didn't expect the underworld assassins to be so powerful, but no matter how powerful you are, you will surely die today. This Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin looked at Feng Qingyang standing on the mountain peak with a sinister gaze. He hadn't expected to fall into such a trap this time. However, the strongest person from their Blood Rain Tower present here this time was not him. Then, this Blood Rain Tower assassin's gaze slowly turned in one direction. And in the direction he looked, a man wearing a golden mask slowly walked out. The aura emanating from this man far surpassed that of this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin. At the same time, when this man looked at this Blood Rain Tower gold medal assassin, a hint of disdain appeared in his eyes. Clearly, this man also hadn't expected that their Blood Rain Tower's gold medal assassin couldn't even deal with a sword cultivator in the perfected saint realm. I didn't expect such a sword cultivator like you to appear in the underworld. How about joining my Blood Rain Tower? Then, the man wearing the golden mask slowly walked towards Feng Qingyang, and his domineering voice directly reached Feng Qingyang's ears. When he looked at Feng Qingyang, there was also a hint of surprise and admiration in his eyes. Chapter 333 Li Chungang makes his move. One sword makes an immortal kneel. However, A look of embarrassment appeared on the face of the gold medal assassin from the Blood Rain Tower after hearing the words of the mysterious man in the golden mask from the Blood Rain Tower. He had originally thought that this expert from the Blood Rain Tower would deal with Feng Qingyang after his appearance, but he did not expect that this expert from the Blood Rain Tower would choose to recruit Feng Qingyang into the Blood Rain Tower after appearing. If Feng Qingyang really joined the Blood Rain Tower, wouldn't his defeat to Feng Qingyang today spread throughout the entire central region? This humble one disdains to join a mere Blood Rain Tower. Feng Qingyang said arrogantly after hearing the words of the man in the golden mask from the Blood Rain Tower. After speaking, the terrifying sword intent on his body also continuously vibrated to express his feelings. How dare you, with your meager abilities, despise my Blood Rain Tower? You truly don't know what's good for you. The mysterious expert from the Blood Rain Tower, who had a smile on his face, instantly turned grim after hearing Feng Qingyang's words. Then, a terrifying aura emanated from him, pressing down towards Feng Qingyang. He himself appeared extremely angry. He hadn't expected Feng Qingyang to refuse him so decisively. He doesn't deserve to despise your Blood Rain Tower. So do you think I deserve to despise your Blood Rain Tower? Just as Feng Qingyang felt this terrifying pressure, a playful voice came from the sky, followed by a terrifying aura that also emanated from the sky. The next second, an old man slowly appeared above Feng Qingyang. And then the old man looked at the expert from the Blood Rain Tower in the golden mask with disdain. A late-stage Saint King Sword Cultivator. It seems my Blood Rain Tower has indeed underestimated your underworld. I didn't expect the underworld to possess a late-stage Saint King Sword Cultivator. The expert from the Blood Rain Tower wearing the golden mask revealed a solemn expression on his face when he felt the aura emanating from Li Chungang. He hadn't expected the underworld to still possess Saint King-level experts, and furthermore, a sword cultivator, who are the most difficult to deal with among all cultivators. Among all cultivators, sword cultivators are the strongest and most difficult to deal with. So, do you think I deserve to despise your Blood Rain Tower? Li Chunggang's expression did not change much after hearing the words of this expert from the Blood Rain Tower. Instead, he continued to speak calmly to the expert from the Blood Rain Tower. Your Excellency's strength is indeed not weak, but there are many Saint King-level cultivators in my Blood Rain Tower. The expert from the Blood Rain Tower wearing the golden mask shook his head and said after hearing Li Chunggang's words. Although Li Chunggang's strength was indeed good. However, there were many Saint King-level cultivators in their Blood Rain Tower, not to mention that their Blood Rain Tower also had great Saint-level experts. Since that's the case, then let me see the strength of those so-called Saint King-level cultivators in your Blood Rain Tower. Of course, it's best if they're not as weak as that fellow. Otherwise, I won't even have the desire to make a move. Li Chungang also spoke calmly after hearing the words of this assassin from the Blood Rain Tower. After speaking, he did not forget to glance at the gold medal assassin from the Blood Rain Tower on the mountain peak. His eyes were full of disdain when he looked at the gold medal assassin from the Blood Rain Tower. Does your Excellency really think you have me cornered? The assassin from the Blood Rain Tower's face instantly turned ugly after hearing Li Chunggang's words. Although he knew that it would be difficult for him to defeat Li Chungang. But no matter what, his cultivation had reached late Saint King. So for Li Chungang to want to defeat him was simply wishful thinking. Little Qingyang, watch carefully. This is how a sword is used. Li Chungang did not reply to the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower. Instead, he turned his head and spoke to Feng Qingyang. After speaking, he gently waved his finger towards Feng Qingyang. The next second, the long sword in Feng Qingyang's hand appeared in his hand. The moment the long sword entered his hand, Li Chunggang's aura instantly underwent an earth-shattering change. At this moment, he was like an insurmountable mountain for sword cultivators. One sword immortal kneels. At the same time, Li Chunggang's aged voice slowly emerged, and the terrifying sword intent on his body naturally erupted as well. The next second, this sword directly cut through the dark night sky, as if bringing this dark night sky into light. And the silver-white sword glow in the sky also directly slashed towards the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower in front of him. The assassin from the Blood Rain Tower wearing the golden mask quickly retreated when he felt this terrifying sword glow. However, at this moment, he discovered that this sword glow seemed to have locked onto him, making it impossible for him to dodge the attack of this sword glow. So, the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower wearing the golden mask, who had retreated several hundred li, also stopped his steps, and then quickly formed hand seals in the sky. The next second, a fiery red light enveloped him. This fiery red light instantly turned the surrounding space into a sea of fire. And the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower, in this sea of fire, stared in shock at the silver-white sword glow that was slashing down from the sky. The next second, this silver-white sword glow in the sky cut through the night sky, and at the same time, it cut through the sea of fire around the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower, directly striking the red light shield in front of the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower. The moment this sword glow collided with this red light shield, many cracks instantly appeared on the upper part of the red light shield. The next second, it shattered directly, and the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower, wearing the golden mask, was also directly sent flying by this force. Then, he was like a meteor directly smashing onto a mountain peak, instantly piercing through that mountain peak. Only a deep pit was left, and the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower walked out of this pit in a very disheveled state. At this moment, there was a terrifying sword mark on his chest, and blood was constantly oozing from this sword mark, and a trace of blood hung from the corner of his mouth, making him look very disheveled at this moment. You truly deserve to die. Then, the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower glared angrily at Li Chungang in the sky. The next second, he continuously formed hand seals with his hands. Then, a dragon roar spread throughout the entire night sky, followed by a fire dragon that slowly began to appear behind the assassin from the Blood Rain Tower. The moment this fire dragon appeared, the entire world seemed to be illuminated, and at the same time, a terrifying pressure spread throughout the entire world. The Yao beast below, upon feeling this terrifying aura, all prostrated on the ground. Clearly, although this fire dragon was an attack from the Blood Rain Tower assassin, it already carried the bloodline suppression unique to the Dragon Clan.